There we go.
It's very magical being me. Tell me about it.
And that's the first thing people are going to hear when they watch us on YouTube. Very magical being me.
I can make cans disappear.
It is magical being Darren.
It's so
Reed.
magical. I can turn beer into pee like nobody else.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to take us live now.
All right, so funny. But that is true, though. That is true. They don't call me Flomax Darren for nothing.
That could be the first thing people hear in our live.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Flomax Darren.
Flomax Darren. I've heard before. But you know what's so funny? Sometimes you can go for a while with that and not have to go. But sometimes it's like every 5 minutes.
Yep.
So it's weird.
Welcome to my life.
I remember everybody's life. You know. Oh, here we go. Is this thing going to be live now? It's live now. Sometimes you can go for a while with that and not have to go. Ooh. Okay. Anyway, so we are officially live. So here we are again. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, that was fun though. It's fun to get up and listen to that. We do that because it's funny because we time it just such that we're obviously in the same. We start at the same time, so we get to. I'll get you a little text messages saying, "Ooh," you know, it's exactly. And we do seem to time it just right though.
Yeah.
Like when so you'll say something or I'll say something and then you'll text me immediately right there about it, which is always kind of funny.
Hilarious. Hey Joseph. He says, am I embarrassingly the first one here?
You are. You're the first one at the party, Joe.
You're the first one to comment anyway. You're the first one that showed up. There's 4 people here now. The names don't always show up. Facebook is like
the names do not show up for me, Mary. I don't know what the story is, but I do not get to see names like you do. You'll say hi so and so, and I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
Well, I wonder if you have to be on the Civil War Breakfast Club page watching it to see.
I don't know. It's probably a Facebook thing. We're all getting logged by Zuckerberg anyway.
Yeah.
Be careful. You'll get banned for something probably.
Oh, probably.
Nice. My back still hurts, by the way.
No, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it was.
Like maybe you should try stretching. I don't know.
Dr. Fincher. Okay, fine. Anyway, so good morning to you, Fincheroo. How was your night?
Good. I edited the podcast and I'm getting much quicker at editing it now.
Yeah, you were done by like 8:30 last night.
Yeah.
About that. No, it was a little late. What's that?
It was a little bit later. It was a little bit later. Like I thought like, okay, 2.5 hours is what I had left. And that's pretty much what I did because I did take a trip out to the Lick Bow, admittedly. I had to go.
Of course you did.
I had to go get provisions. I was out of wine.
You must be, I swear to God, if you ever stop going to that Lick Bow, which is the Liquor Control Board of Ontario.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to do it. They're going to go out of business. I'm telling you, when you pull up in your car, they all yell, everyone at their station, she's here.
Yep, they do.
Get the IPAs. Go get the IPAs. That 5'4" angry Canadian is here.
Jesus. Yeah.
Anyway,
so there's regulars that go there for sure that I see all the time. Like
I bet you do.
Other people, yeah.
You're a regular. You're like Norm at Cheers.
I'm shocked that we don't know each other by name.
I'll tell you about it.
Joseph says it's always good to be with you. Good morning. Yes, good morning to everybody here. We've Barbara, Roger, Ben.
Hey, what's up, Raj? Hey, Jake. Hey, Barbara.
Jacob.
Ben Frail, the pride of Rhode Island.
Jacob said, so if I said something like Zuck doesn't blink, that would be bad. It could possibly get you banned.
Yeah, you'd be gone for Blink 182 days, right? Be the banning. Is that the name of that band? Blink 182?
Yeah, Blink 182.
I think I'd be thinking about them today. But anyway. So good morning to you, Mary. How is life?
Good. How about you?
Yeah. Well, living the dream, man. Living the dream.
I wish I could be outside like you are.
Oh, it's actually perfect outside. It's probably it's almost 60 degrees, which is 40 degrees higher than it was like 3 days ago. So it's nice to be able to sit out here. Hey, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Good morning.
Jim signed on. Jim's the man. He signs on, watches us all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Joseph said social media
sorry for the social media spam for the Tennessee campaign stuff. That's his season. I didn't see that as spam at all. That's always good stuff.
Yeah, I don't think like the Western theater campaigns are not as well known as the Eastern theater campaigns, I think. So it's good to be spammy about it. It's not really spam. It's you're teaching people about it.
Hey Jim, yeah, Gettysburg, everything's canceled. Yeah, that's too bad. Was it
Yeah.
midnight the other day? So if you want to go to Pennsylvania now, you've got to get a COVID test within 3 days or quarantine there, which makes it unvisitable if you're from out of state. Because if I wanted to go to Gettysburg now, Mary, I'd have to get a COVID test within 3 days to go there. I'd have to when I came back to Massachusetts, I'd have to get a COVID test again or quarantine for 14 days. There does come a point when it's like, I'm just going to wait this goddamn thing up, because you know what? The old statue's still going to be there. He's going to always be perpetually high. So he's having a good time. So if he's having a good time, then we'll have a good time. And,
that horse, Tony Montana.
Tony Montana.
Howard's horse. We don't know if that was his name. I'd like to think it probably was.
I'm going to guess it was not Tony Montana, Mary, his horse. That
I know.
No, was that the same horse that? No, you probably know this because you know all this horse stuff. Was that the same horse he would have had when he was at Chattanooga?
Quite possibly. I'm not sure. I haven't done any research on Howard's horses yet, but I do.
No, I don't know. I know you did that whole.
Some of them aren't as well. Like some of them aren't some of the horses aren't as well known as others. Like Longstreet's horses, there was like next to nothing on his. Whereas somebody like Grant, there's a whole bunch written about his horse. There's a whole bunch written about Old Baldy. Actually, the battles for Chattanooga. That happened to Grant after those battles is he was given his favorite horse, Cincinnati.
Yeah. And I was doing some research. I was just up at 5:30 in the morning today reading Grant's memoirs, like a real shut-in loser. And I forgot about that story, that horse Kangaroo at Vicksburg that he had. Yeah. When he got completely shit-faced. And he decided to jump on a horse and went like 100 miles an hour off and ended up passing out in the field, and they had to chase him down. They were afraid that Confederate bombers were going to not kill him, but cut off his badges and take them as souvenirs. And it was an interesting read. And so I remember that from the Vicksburg book, the Groom book I read. Yeah. And then I went back in his memoirs, and shockingly, he didn't mention much about it. Oh, so it's kind of like that 3-hour blackout period you have on Saturday night, so you never tell me what happened because you don't remember. It was probably the same exact thing. I'd imagine. I can't imagine. Whether or not you jumped on a horse named Kangaroo is a different story, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he had Kangaroo, he had Jeff Davis, and he had Cincinnati. Those were his 3 main horses, I think.
Now, so yeah, there's that curfew too. Roger mentions he's in Ohio. I'm not sure what happens if COVID is more dangerous after 10 o'clock at night. I don't get that one. I know they want to keep people out of the bars. I get it.
I think that's why. I think it's just to keep people from having parties, because I know here in Ontario, it's the parties that are spreading it. Like there was some people in London, Ontario last weekend that had like a party of over 100 people, no masks. Mm-hmm. It's just so wonderful. And,
yeah, Manny had his trip canceled to Thanksgiving to Massachusetts. Manny, I'll tell you straight, there's no great shakes going on here this year anyway, so you ain't missing much.
Yeah, we didn't have Thanksgiving here in Canada.
Ben, is it her blacking out or is it me? I can tell you, Ben, with 100% certainty, it is not me.
I did for the record, I don't black out on Saturday nights.
There'll be a day, Ben, we'll sit at some bar and I'll tell you some stories. It ain't me.
Thanks.
Guilty conscience.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah, but hey, Ryan.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon over there in the that stuff.
I do forgive you for taking Howard out just because you had such a cool mug. He was Ryan was playing a game this morning, and he had Kearney, however you say it, commanding the AOP, and he'd already released Howard. Kearney.
Always Kearney.
Yeah.
But no, that's, you know what though, people joke about it. God knows you busted my balls a week or two ago with that whole Cairo fiasco. But I mean, it happened. Whatever.
I was listening to Thunder in the Mountains yesterday, which is about a book about O.O. Howard and his experiences in the West after the war. But it goes back and talks about during the Civil War. It is pronounced Caro.
Yeah, I know it is. I mean, I was summarily corrected, which tends to happen. But it happens. Yeah. It happens. I mean, for God's sakes. Again, you're dancing? Seriously?
No.
If anybody who watched the podcast that dropped this morning on the video, there's one moment where Mary did some sort of weird Elaine Bennis dance halfway through it. We don't know what happens. And It was troubling. It was.
I was singing a Taylor Swift song.
Full body dry heave is what that was.
Oh, Jesus. Jim said, I think it depends on how well each general liked horses as to which horses were written about. If so-and-so didn't like horses, it would make sense that they wouldn't care enough about their horses to write about them, and thus their names are lost to history. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, for example, Pat Claiborne didn't like horses. Now we know the names of his horses, though. That's not their stories. Like, he had a horse called Dixie. He had a horse called Red Pepper. Those are the two that I've come across in reading about him. But yeah, someone like Sherman, he had Sam. God, there were some other ones too. I can't remember.
I'll be honest. I don't know the horses like you do. I remember on your fangirl thing that you had that really good live that one time.
About
you talked about horses for a while. Old Baldy in Cincinnati, and all of them. And the other ones I can't remember right now. But you did a good job with that. I got to give you props, Mary. Once in a while.
No, Baldy's my favorite one.
Baldy. I thought you liked what's the one you named your car after?
Rienzi? Oh yeah, I like Rienzi too.
Yeah.
But Baldy and
Rienzi, as we talked about, was also the name of guess who else's horse had a horse named Rienzi?
John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes Booth had a horse named Rienzi. So
yeah, I did not know that until it was mentioned in American Brutus, actually. Like, you had told me before about Rienzi, but then it was mentioned in American Brutus. Yeah, I named my car Rienzi after Phil Sheridan because I'm the same height as Phil Sheridan.
I named my car Shrek because when I'm driving down a hill and the sun hits it, I see the shadow in front of me. It looks like Shrek. It's a Honda SUV. It is what it is.
I hated that movie.
Yeah. Shrek was okay. It was fine. But anyway, so how's everybody doing today? Jim, the Nicolay pub crawl. It's too bad. I saw that O'Rourke's is closed like on Wednesdays now. They're shutting down their hours. I saw that. I think Fourscore is still open. Speaking of Fourscore, we're rocking the 10.2 at 10 a.m. because I haven't run pencils through my neighborhood in a while, so I might as well.
Let me tell you, folks, this is going to be a good day with Weeks. Jim said Sheridan had Winchester. That is true, Jim. Sheridan's horse actually had two names. Rienzi was the name that he was given when Sheridan got him, I believe, in 1861. But after all of that went down, his ride to Winchester and all that, there was a poem written about him and Rienzi. But in the poem, they named the horse Winchester. So after that, he's called Winchester. In Sheridan's memoirs, though, he does say that people called him Winchester, but I always knew him as Rienzi. That's super deep dive Civil War. I can't believe I did.
Nah, it's fine.
What are you laughing at?
Just read some of the comments.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I think Rienzi Winchester's, he's obviously on display at the Smithsonian, and they do have the name as Winchester on there.
Yeah, I saw him at the Smithsonian, Mary. I was there a couple of years ago. When the hell I've been there. I go to Washington all the time, but I forget which time I actually went. Usually we stop at the beer garden outside, and that's as far as the Smithsonian we get, unfortunately. But inside we went to the American History Museum. We saw that was pretty cool. Yeah. There's all kinds of schools. And our good friend John Heckman.
Yes, I was just going to say, Heckman was really awesome and sent us pictures the other day.
He was texting us pictures yesterday of some of his travels and some cool stuff he saw. We saw Sherman's Slouch Hat, which I have not seen before. That was legit cool.
Yeah. I think I've seen it before, but I love seeing it. We'll go sometime.
That old thing, I've seen it 100 times.
I've only seen it once, fucker. Hey, and speaking of Heckman, he just popped on.
John, we were just talking about you, man. Your ears must have been burning. We were just talking about those fantastic pictures you were sending us the other day. Yeah. That was on really, really cool stuff. So, John Heckman, I'm sure everyone knows he is the fantastic tattooed historian. So you got to follow him on his Facebook and his everything. He has some of the best. He does some of the best lives. And, he's a good dude too. He's so definitely if you're on this, you probably follow him. If you don't, then shame on you, because you should.
And actually, I think it was yesterday was the anniversary of when John and I met in person for the first time in Gettysburg and got to hang out. We hung out at the Blue and Gray for
Blue and Gray, right?
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah. I keep up. I keep up.
I know. I think John and I have known each other for 6 years, and so we finally met in person after 4 and got to hang out. It was really awesome.
No, he's a good dude.
But,
yeah, he sent us those really cool pictures yesterday. We really appreciated those.
Yeah,
John, that was awesome. That made the afternoon. Shitty day at work, seeing those was really
it was
cool
great. Good way to end the week. Ryan said, if anyone is interested, good Civil War PC games: Grand Tactician, Civil War II, Ultimate General, Civil War, and great first-person shooter, War of Rights. Well, Ryan and John should probably talk sometime, because I think John's into video games too.
Yeah, that's you know what's so funny? That's like a whole thing. I never get into video games as much, but I think it's cool. I mean, John does a live thing with some of his video games that are really, really cool too.
Yeah.
I've watched a few times. I'm not a big game guy, so I just don't. I can't really appreciate it like these guys do. But it's pretty cool though. But it's pretty cool. So yeah, so definitely. So if you're on this and you don't follow John, Tattoo Historian, that's your homework assignment for this week. You got to follow him. Watch.
Barbara says she enjoys Heckman's live streams. That's awesome. Yeah.
You know what's so funny is Barbara brings up a good point since the pandemic began, is how many people are taking advantage of it. I remember when the Gettysburg National Military Park did the Coffee with the Ranger. Mm-hmm. And I remember that, I think it was March or April or May. And that was like I'd get up every Sunday, every Wednesday morning, every Sunday morning. I would religiously watch those. Mm-hmm. And then I was talking to Atkinson, and he told me, he broke my heart, and he says that they're recorded, they're not live. Yeah. I don't think I'm supposed to say that, but see Matt Atkinson.
You can sometimes tell those are but yeah, I really hope that is something that continues post-pandemic, because I think we brought this up in the roundtable the other night, which, by the way, thank you to everybody who joined us for the roundtable the other night. It was an awesome night. I know cool. Ryan was there, Jim was there, the Alleys were there. So it was a really, really fun time. Lots of great discussion.
Well, what's great about it is, we've talked about this a million times, Mary. It's like, some of these things, you and I go on these lectures together, right? And it's very high level, and it's great because we appreciate it. But it's a very esoteric type of lecture. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and then you ask questions, and you hope that, the questions, you hope they're not stupid questions. Oh my God, I hope that's, you know what I mean? But the roundtable was cool though, because it just gives people an opportunity who've been stuck in the house for a while, like we all have, to just hang out. We talked about all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah. And I just literally just sat there and just watched and just goes, what am I going to say? I mean, it was awesome because I learned as much as anybody else does. And just sitting there and just hearing everybody talk and converse amongst themselves. And it's a cool little community that jumps on that. So it's the nice. Third Wednesday of every month. So if you do it, if you're on, like a lot of the folks like Jake and these guys have been on, we appreciate it. But you aren't on, jump on, because you know what? We get to hang out. It's just an hour. We just shoot the shit, talk about Civil War stuff, whatever's on your mind. It's not structured. It's not any sort of lecture-ish type thing. It just gives get your voice out there and just see what you have to say in this, Yeah. There's no bad questions. There's only bad people, Mayor.
And speaking of bad people, as Jacob just said to find out about Darren's hatred for bikers.
I'm going to be like Hancock, and I'm not going to back off of that. Okay. I'm going to be like him at the first Minnesota reunion. I'm going to stand up there and say, you know what? I know I got you people killed, but damn it, I would do it again. When I'm driving down my road and there is a gigantic flock of bikers who are in the Flying V, Mighty Duck style in the middle of the road, I'm sorry. They got to stay to the right. That's just the way it is. And yes, if I hit a biker, no, of course not, as far as you know. But I think for the most part, I think they just need to stay. They just need to stay to the right. So if you live in Cape Cod and you're on your bike, and just stay to the right, we'll be cool. We'll be cool.
Joseph says, "Can you imagine how great the conference of the digital acquaintances made since lockdown is going to be?" Yeah, I've made so many friends and met so many people during lockdown that I know I'll eventually meet in real life.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, now, like we talk about how traveling to Chickamauga or these places, we'll be able to hang out with people we know now.
I know, it's awesome. It feels like when you meet them, I think when you meet them in person, it's not going to be that kind of sometimes meeting somebody for the first time can be awkward. It's not going to be like that. I find it just probably be like you pick up right where you left off at the round table or the Facebook Live or wherever. No. Right?
And I'm the type of guy who will start a conversation on the subway with whatever weirdo's sitting near me. So I'm not afraid of anything. But I think it's pretty cool. And Barbara, she came to us because of John's suggestion, which we appreciate. So hopefully you came back. So hopefully you appreciate it. So I think it's great. I've always I've studied all kinds of history my entire life, and I've really I really embrace the Civil War history more than any other history. And I find that the Civil War people are by far the smartest people in history. And it's not even close. I just think maybe because it's an important part of the war in this country and the history of this country, obviously. I just find them to be some of the smartest people. Some of the smartest people I've ever met have been Civil War historians. Not even close.
Yep, same here.
And I hate to say it, Mary, you included. You know, I hate to say it. You know, it's true.
You
It's
too.
true. No, it's true though. It's just because it's a down to earth group. It's a passion that we've said before. It gets in your blood, and when it gets in your blood, it doesn't get out of your blood. And you just get that passion talking about it. It's really really cool. You know?
Yeah, that's why I especially enjoyed the episode we just recorded. It was so good to talk about those the lesser known parts of the Chattanooga campaign, and just to kind of highlight that they are just as fascinating as the rest of the campaign and other battles in the Civil War too. Like you made that really good point about, I think it was Brown's Ferry being one of the most important covert operations in the Civil War.
I think it is the most important covert operation. I think the Brown's Ferry operation is the most important covert one. I mean, just because for the first that came after it. I mean, it's hard to imagine what that would have happened. The battle would have ended, but the reality is, I don't think the Union was going to escape from that. Does that mean Grant gets captured, Sherman gets captured? What happens if they do? Right?
I know.
How does that affect, obviously, Atlanta? How does that affect the March to the Sea? How does it affect everything that came afterwards?
Well,
How does it affect Petersburg? So, in Ross's Landing, when they got on, those 1,400 guys got on the boat and sailed down, they were aided by the fog. And again, the weather shined on the Union. Again, it's just one of those, it's like I said before, this country, the United States, has been 4th and 10 in a football metaphor many, many times. And it seems that they always connect when it's, it just, because that could have gone bad. That could have completely blown up. If they don't open up the cracker line, Chattanooga gets starved out. Who knows how history is? That's the great what if. And I know people don't like to do the what if thing.
I think
some of the series.
I
think most people do.
Yeah.
I think some of the real hardcore, people. There are certain people who don't like the what if game. I'm just going to leave that alone. Okay. Yeah. Hey, but I think for the most part, I think for the most part, people like to talk about it because it is an important thing. I mean, it's just something to talk about. That's all.
Had beer go up my nose. That's not a fucking pleasant. Jesus. Jacob, Civil War history, the new bloodborne pathogen. Jim said, when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base outside of the Black Hills, and every year there was at least one person who became road pizza during the Sturgis motorcycle rally. Motorcycles were everywhere, so I learned to give them a wide berth while driving.
Well, you should at least be able to door prize them, Mary.
Yeah.
You should be able to at least hit them at the door.
Allie, morning, scary Joe Hooker couldn't keep me away.
Yeah, I was worried about Allie that she didn't sign on a little bit.
She got Allie this morning.
Allie's got a new profile picture on her Twitter, I think now. I think that's what that was. I thought it was a good picture of Hooker. I don't know why she thinks it's scary. He's got a nice smile on his face.
When I looked at it again, I'm like, there is something creepy about that.
Hell. But hey, Jim said some very nice things on our Facebook last night about this. And Jim, we are very, very happy you were part of this. And we are so happy that this gives you an outlet to be happy, because that made us feel really, really good that you do that. So
and just everybody that joins us every Saturday and for our roundtables, thank you so much, and for listening.
But that was I felt really good reading that. It
me
really
too.
did. That was a very heartfelt thing you did. So,
so thank you, Jim, for that.
Yeah. So Allie, sorry about that. That was
thing of nightmares.
I wish I could blame Mary for it, but no, it's fine. I think it is.
That's why I was like, thank Weeks for that, Jem.
Yeah, you threw me right on the bus for that one, though, by the way.
Everybody knows it's you that do that.
What happened to the whole, well, we're part of a team. Fuck you, Dan.
Fucker.
But no, but going back to the Browns Landing thing, it just followed such a it's just an interesting part of that battle, and I'm so glad that we took Chattanooga on and we decided to spend the first part of it talking about the lead up, right?
Yeah, because
instead of going right to Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge and talking about all that stuff. Waxahachie we talked about in detail, but the Browns Landing we talked about. But I think also the point of explaining the dire situation the Union was in. But I think the thing that I don't want to say proud of, but I'm glad we talked about it. I'm glad we kind of shined a little bit of light on Grant with this.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is a place where Grant runs into some trouble. Sorry, you asshole.
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Where Grant runs into some trouble, and he also throws people under the bus. Like, as when we'll talk about Lookout Mountain, we're gonna see what he's not too kind to Hooker. He's not too kind to Thomas when he first arrives in Chattanooga, and he does, I think, bend history in his favor a little bit in his memoirs about it, as does Sherman, which, I mean, as you said before, Darren, memoirs are not about talking about your mistakes. And I mean, Howard does it too in his memoirs. He glosses over shit as well and portrays himself in a different light. Liza said, my father was a history professor, so I was immersed in history from birth. But when I got into the Civil War, there is something that just is so compelling and immersive about it. It's beyond compare. So your comments really resonate with me. Yeah, like Darren's comments resonate with me too, because isn't
that so true though? Like,
it is.
Like I grew up literally in the shadows of the American Revolution. I grew up in Waltham, Massachusetts, the home of Nathaniel Banks, which we'll leave that alone, I guess. But I grew up literally hundreds of yards from Lexington Battle Green. I think I went there 3 times in my life on school field trips, I think. Yeah. And I never got into it, never did. I went to a reenactment one time at the ass crack of dawn on April 19th. My father dragged me there when I was a kid. But once I got into the Civil War, I just never turned back. And it's my greatest passion. It's been for a long friggin' time. It always will be. And it's just so nice to be able to have an outlet, to talk about this, because it is amazing though how much you learn by talking to people versus reading.
I have learned so much from you since.
Well, I just don't mean me though. I mean like anybody.
Yeah, I'm using it as an example though. But
I know you've learned a lot from me. I know.
Well, to me, you're the smartest person in this, like, about the Civil War by far. But like, as an example, when we started kind of hanging out in May and all that, and like the conversations we had about the Civil War, I found myself thinking about it differently. And then just this community that exists now, like, I learned so much from everybody. Like, I've learned stuff from Ali B. I've learned a lot from Jim over the years that I've been following him. I've learned a lot from John. And I've learned a lot from Ryan too. Like, just like, we're there to help each other learn and to understand these battles better. And that's what's awesome. And mine is a 32-year obsession. I got into this shit when I was 6.
I think what's good about, you mentioned the people, and I agree with this, you learn from everybody, but just getting, contrary to what people will tell you, especially online, no one knows. No one's a Confederate. No one's a Union. No one knows shit as far as fact. There are no superlatives in the Civil War. There's no fact number 1, number 2. It's what you learn and what you understand of it. And the more people you talk to, I've learned more, to be totally honest, Mayor, sitting in bars in Gettysburg talking to locals.
Same here.
Some of the stuff, and I know a lot of the stories, conjecture, hyperbole, and things like that. But you learn so much more about the reality, because as John mentions before, memoirs are always aimed, and we talked about this before, are aimed at specific people. I was looking at Grant's memoirs this morning just because I was up and I wanted to look something up real quick, and every memoir is a victory lap. That's the whole point of it.
It is, of course.
If I was writing a memoir about me, I would only talk about my positives, because that's what you remember for. I'm not going to talk about the stupid shit I did. God knows your memoirs would be Jesus. God, can you imagine your memoirs?
I'll talk about the stupid shit you did.
Oh, you will. I know you will. But I mean, call me maybe. You got to get her singing sometime. One of these times going to happen.
Nope.
But it's true though. I mean, it's just so cool sitting around talking to people. And I know, the people who've been to these battlefields, which is everybody on this thing. Mm-hmm. At some point, they've sat at Sweeney's, or they've talked to somebody at a restaurant and just talked about how you talk to somebody from the Kadori family, for example, or talked about, somebody whose family's been there for 100 years and 200 more years. And they talked about how stories their great-great-grandfather told them about how there was a Confederate, literally, soldier who was hiding out in their attic and just just stuff. And those are the cool stories. And that's why we do this, as the personal stories. It's not anybody can talk about, Ambrose Wright marched across the field, was pushed back, but it's be able to sit and talk about the stories, because everyone has stories. Everyone's
absolutely.
people, and that's what I like to talk about.
John just said Mary's memoirs would be full of expletives. It would be delightful. You're fucking right.
Well, John, you obviously Mary, so let's leave that alone right there. You know exactly how that would be, for God's sakes.
Pretty sure I probably dropped the word fuck in front of him within 2 minutes of meeting him in person at
the beginning, it would be like Moby Dick. The beginning of your book would be, call me fucker instead of call me Ishmael. That's how your book would start. I mean, hey, I appreciate it. I think it's always fun talking to you to see how long it takes for you to swear. And it's usually within 10 seconds every single time. First thing in the morning. Hey, what's going on, fucker?
I did not say fuck once during the live stream with John. I was
no, John. Just so you know, she was properly coached for that. I said, Mary, we're going on John's thing. We're not swearing, right? Oh, no. Really? Yep. Okay, we won't. Mary, seriously. Okay, I won't.
As soon as we weren't live anymore.
That was like one of those, I would say, between teaching you how to say Massachusetts, that time on video we did that time, that was the only other time I had to sit down and say, okay, here's how this goes. And I could tell it was a struggle for you. That was pretty good.
John was impressed.
It was. I mean, it was, it was pretty good.
Joseph says, I grew up in a Civil War museum, and instead of Disney World, we went to Civil War battlefields, no regrets. Yeah, I did the Disney thing as a kid too, but when we would travel, like we would do stuff like that, but then we would also, I was the one that was like, I want to go to museums, like remember visiting the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan when I was 6 years old and not wanting to leave the Lincoln chair. I stood by that thing for like half an hour with my grandmother.
Oh, you told me that story.
Yeah.
For me, I was like the John F. Kennedy Museum in Boston, JFK one. That was always a good one.
I missed out on that when I was there for that video game conference a few years ago. And instead of going to the video game thing, I wish I had just went to that.
Well, you come to Boston, I'll take you to it. Okay. I know John's going to come back up. We talk about John coming to Boston here pretty soon. So we'll get him over there too.
Awesome.
I can't believe... I think John, you said you were here, but you didn't see the city or something. I forget how.
Yeah, that's why you didn't see the city. Yeah.
But obviously, you got a personal tour guide, John. When you want to come up here,
definitely. The three of us need to take Boston on.
Oh God, please! Be the worst thing that's happened is the redcoats. Talk about a new Boston massacre. Friggin' Fincher in Boston. My God.
Canadian invasion.
But the good news is if you call someone a fucker, they'll be like, yeah, it's Boston. Like,
I know.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for the compliment.
Maybe I've got a little bit of Boston in me or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Allie said, yeah, memoirs are always written for a certain audience. There's a great video on C-SPAN, yeah, I know, sorry, with Brooke Simpson, and he talks about 3 other historians regarding Grant's, and it's a great conversation. Though if you read Grant's memoirs, you wouldn't know he was madly in love with his wife. So it's interesting how much you get to see and how much you don't. And there is, Allie, I don't know if you know this or not, Allie B, but there is a book that came out a few years ago. I think it was edited by Ron Chernow, and it's Grant's letters to Julia. And it's actually, I haven't read all of them yet, but there's some really cool letters in there.
Well, they said the only 2 things he was good at in life was marriage and war, right? I think that was in the Ken Burns documentary.
Yep. Jim just said, my 5-year-old just said they said a bad word.
God. Sorry about that. Oh, well.
Hey, Christopher. Oh, the cults. I was accidentally making fun of the statue outside the Heritage Museum, not realizing I was making fun of it to one of the guys who's responsible for it.
Mm-hmm. But man, yeah, the JFK Museum. There's actually, so you went to Cape Cod. So you went to the JFK Museum in Hyannis, I assume? The one I was talking about was the one in the city, Boston. But there's one in Hyannis, which used to house the Cape Cod Baseball League Hall of Fame until very recently, too, as I'm speaking of baseball. But the one in Hyannis is really, really cool. But the one in Boston, right on the harbor, it's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. It's definitely check that stuff out.
Yeah, well, Heckman just said that find a pub to host us, and we'll do a live history chat.
Oh, John, that's a slam dunk. We'll do Green Dragon for that. Yeah. Absolutely. Or we'll do Bell in Hand, which is the first pub in America, the very first one. but they're right next to each other in the old part of Boston. So we'll
Nice.
do that. We could do it, absolutely do it live. So when you come down, that'll be awesome. But
Jim
yeah, but
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned Grant. I mean, I think his, you know, we mentioned before, his memoirs are, I think, mandatory reading for any Civil War nerd.
Yep.
But it is funny when, see, I read those when I was younger, and I read them again relatively recently. It is amazing when you have more history to study and you go back and read them, how full of shit he was. A lot of different things.
Sherman's the same way. Like Sherman's memoirs, he's obviously making himself look really, really good.
And they do. I mean, they
very
do.
chatty.
You take it for a grain of salt. They do.
Oh,
That's
exactly.
exactly what you do. You know?
Jim's got a really good comment here. There is something about the Civil War that people see it on a human scale. You can literally view the war through the eyes of those who lived through it. The Revolution has been taught to us as U.S. against England, though it was also a civil war where neighbors and family members fought against one another, whereas the Civil War is more accessible to the modern public as the brother against brother trope. Yeah.
Well, I think the Civil War is great because I think most people have someone in their family who fought in it. And I'm like, and look, a lot of us have World War II, and look, Vietnam, and nothing against those, but just there's something about that war. That the fact that it's a volunteer army, the fact that it was really proving the mettle of a Declaration of Independence, right? It's one thing to say that all men are created equal; it's another thing to fight to prove it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of philosophy that goes into that too. The fact of the matter is, the whole world was rooting against the U.S. because they all had monarchies, and they didn't want to see this American democratic experience prove that it could work. They wanted to see it fail because it affected their power. So there's a lot that went into it, including your Canadians up there, Fincher. They weren't exactly rooting for the old USA. I mean, granted, no one's going to sit here and blame a town of Goderich, Ontario for that, but I mean, certainly Montreal, Quebec, right?
Well, John was sending us that stuff from the War of 1812 where the Americans kicked Canada's ass. Something about coolness came up.
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
Funny. Allie said she does have those letters. I love them. He's all lovey-dovey with Julia. It's kind of cute and cheesy. And Jim has those letters too. Yeah, they are cool. John said Share Now and Grant came up in our gaming event on Twitch last night. Well, that's cool. I have yet to read Share Now's bio of Grant. I've read
I haven't either.
I've read Brand's biography of him, which is it's quite good, and I've read Ronald White Jr.'s biography of him, and it was really, really good too. Joseph says, ever read John Schofield's? That's something that could be a drinking game where nobody wins.
Yeah. Well,
hey, Allie K. Oh, and some bastard named Darren Weeks is watching now too.
Really?
Yeah.
He sucks. Hi, Allie. Good morning. I think it's good morning. Yeah, it's Minnesota.
You had to apologize to her the other night for the biker comment. That was funny.
You know, for God's sakes. I mean, you know, it is. You know what, Mary? I stand by that comment. I do. You got to have principles. I stand by it. Of course, I would not run Allie over, though. No. That's what you're insinuating. I love Allie. Allie's awesome. She's a college hockey. She's a college hockey fan. So you know she roots for the Gophers. Yeah. I will.
Even I'm a college hockey fan now. That's saying something.
Yeah, Boston College was supposed to open last night, but they got postponed because UNH kids got COVID. So anyway,
I was looking forward to watching that. It's been years since.
Yeah, they're playing tonight. They're playing tonight on TV, so you can watch them tonight. They're not in New Hampshire tonight, but yeah, they're playing New Hampshire tonight. Ooh. Although most of the BC games are on TV here.
We'll have to see if I can find it.
Because they should be actually. But
hey, Leonard.
Yeah.
Leonard, you are allowed to participate. I give you permission to participate, even though Weeks said you couldn't last week.
You know, you're going to talk to me about a slip of the tongue. You are, of all people. You can smile all you want. It doesn't get you off the hook. I don't care. Hey, Leonard, how's it going, Belle?
John said, but you still don't like curling, #sad. Well, John, that's one of the areas that you balance me out. John and I kind of like, John's more Canadian than I am, which is the funny thing. So what I don't like, he does. So that's why I can keep my Canada card.
Definitely. Go PC, Ben. Hey, Providence College. Hey, you know what, Ben? I'll be honest. I was there in 2015 in Boston when they won the national title against Boston University. There was no bigger Friar fan than me that night watching them play BU. Trust me. I cried like a baby when you guys won that night. I was so happy BU lost. Oh, I never thought it was going to happen in a million years. So, well, Viva La Friars that night. But, yeah.
Leonard,
yes, Leonard,
yeah,
you are absolutely a participant. Of course you are.
Allie said, "Oh, I saw some bikers this morning. I had to shake my fist. They were in the way."
We're gonna have a fighting of the alleys here pretty soon. The dueling alleys.
Yep. Leonard said, "Great episode this week, guys." Oh, thank you, Leonard. And great meme that you posted with Tommy saying,
that was pretty good.
Of my crackers.
Appreciate the kind words. That was a fun one, Mary. A podcast. That was one of the more fun ones we did because I think we're both really into Chattanooga.
I've always been into Chattanooga. It's been like my Gettysburg for as long as I can remember.
But it was a fun one to talk about. I like the fact that we talked about the background, and that was a cool part. And we haven't even talked about Bragg today yet. I mean, right?
You know what I didn't mention on the episode is Braxy.
Yeah, that's
Bragg's
true.
dog.
That's true. But I mean, Braxton Bragg basically, Schneider Arena. Yeah, you know what? They serve Narragansett at Schneider Arena, Ben. So I've been there a few times, and but Braxton Bragg, you talk about what was interesting about the Battle of Chattanooga, though, for me though, was the fact that you really simultaneously had two political dumpster fires going on.
Oh yeah.
The North, you had the whole situation with Rosecrans, who was getting pissed on by Grant,
which is Knots Landing.
Just God, here we go with the Dallas comment again. And then it go over to the Confederate side with Bragg, where where you have these 12 dudes, these generals, basically petition Jeff Davis to get him fired.
And then Jeff Davis comes down, and he's like, they have this like worst team building meeting ever, where they all are sitting in the same room as Bragg, and they're being like, this guy fucking sucks and he needs to go. They all leave the room. It's Bragg and Davis left in the room, and Davis is like, don't worry, dude, I got your back. You can stay in command. Don't worry.
Well, that's the thing, too. Think about the balls, right? The sheer balls for them. I mean, guys like Longstreet signed it. Obviously, D.H. Hill signed it. Leonidas Polk signed it, and most of them took a hit for it.
Breckinridge, and wasn't it? Was it Hyman who was the one?
Hyman got fired because he got fired because of what perceived failures at Chickamauga. But I'm not sure he would have signed it. He might have been fired by then. I'm not sure how the timing was on that.
Yeah, but, and then Walker was the one that ended up being elevated in command because he stuck by Bragg, and he's also the one later that was in the meeting when Claiborne presented his emancipation, and he was the one that took it to Davis because he didn't like Claiborne.
But can you imagine though how pissed off these guys must have been, where you see Bragg basically failing in their mind, because they had the Union over a barrel at that point. And then Davis shows up. He comes down from Richmond and he meets with these people face to face and talks about it and still supports Bragg. You know, that surprised me. I mean, you see how, and this goes back to, again, we talked about a few weeks ago, Mary, with the Confederates had so much more leniency with their generals than the Union did. I mean, yes, they got rid of they finally put Hood in, right?
Yeah.
Because in Atlanta being aggressive. But for the most part, they gave these guys so much rope. Whereas the Union, they went through generals like underwear. You know, they went right off the bat. I mean, the slightest mistake, they were gone. I mean, Grant was almost kicked out. They all were.
Well, I think it's the differences in the administration. Like, you have Jefferson Davis, who is, first of all, he's more of a micromanager than what Lincoln is, but he makes things personal. So he doesn't like Joseph E. Johnston.
Right.
Because of him. He likes Braxton Bragg. He likes John Bell Hood. You can't, and well, Hardee, I think, was offered the command, but he noped the fuck away from that pretty quickly. And then Claiborne obviously gets passed over for the obvious reasons, not just because he's Irish. I think it's more to do with the emancipation, and he just that was his end right
well,
there.
he got blackballed after that. And at the end of the day, it is funny how history has proven him right, obviously. But I think for the most part, it just goes to show more tolerance. And Davis it's funny though, because Davis was much more, a micromanager than Lincoln was.
Oh, way
so
more.
you would think that it would be the opposite way. But he also, I mean, it's funny, today, ironically, is the day Judah Benjamin got his position in the Confederacy, just the anniversary of that, by the way. But it stuck in my head that Lincoln had more people around him. He had that war committee. He obviously had Stanton. He had Halleck. He had people around him who were probably in his ear that Davis didn't have. So Davis probably had more sovereignty than Lincoln.
I think Davis definitely did with that. And again, like, he's doing the personal thing. Allie B said, Bragg is like, please, Dad, save me. Everyone hates me. That's totally it.
Bragg brought it upon himself, though, Allie. He did.
I mean, he argues with himself.
The whole quartermaster story is a great story.
And he's not making, obviously, any friends along the way. And I mean, my favorite portrayal of Bragg is still in Jeff Shara's Smoke at Dawn. Like, those are, like, I mean, I love how he's written them. I wanted to strangle Bragg at the end of every chapter. He is just so, like, over the top. Like, how it's basically viewing the world through Braxton Bragg's eyes. He thinks everybody is out to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, but then he had, I mean, is he wrong though? I mean, he had 12 dudes write a petition to get rid of him.
Well, no, but I mean, he had chances after Chickamauga to take that city. And then he did that shit with Forrest, where Forrest came in and tore stuff.
Like we were saying on the podcast, I'm sorry, Nathan Bedford Forrest, but you're the last guy who could say he was mean to me. Come on, dude. Fuck, are you serious?
I know.
I mean, Nathan Bedford Forrest might be one of the top 10 all-time worst people in this country.
Oh, I
and
don't.
He's gonna, and he's gonna. No, he just. I mean, it's true. I mean, a shitty fucking dude.
Yeah, he is.
But he's gonna go and he's gonna talk about how this, so mean. He was so mean to me. I got a kick. I mean, the irony is absolutely hilarious. There's no question.
Jim says, I believe it was after that meeting when Jefferson Davis stayed at Oakland's mansion here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Yeah, that's cool. Allie B says, hi, no, he does. I am not a fan of the dude. And Liza said, that Walker was a piece of shit. Classic kiss up, kick down guy. Davis was too stubborn in his likes. Yeah. Yeah, Walker was a bastard.
I mean, but look, a lot of them were in different situations. But you know what, though? It's, I guess it's one of those things to study into and see what the deal is. But a lot of these people weren't good people. There's a reason why they were doing what they were doing. And just when you study them, especially on the Confederate side, you got to see what some of these guys are about. And it's more specifically on the politicians and the generals than the typical foot soldiers who were just fighting because they were being invaded or so. I don't want to give a pass on the Confederate soldiers either, but at the same time, I'm going to look at them differently than I'm going to look at a fucking Alexander Stevens or a Jefferson Davis or a friggin' Nathan Bedford Forrest or Joseph Walker. I mean, certainly,
Yeah, absolutely. Allie said, Ben says, Forrest is in the top 5, and Allie B said, top 5 with an ugly statue to boot. It's what he deserves. Yeah, I completely agree with you about that. The ugly statue she's referring to, you and I will see it when we go to Franklin, because I think we're going to drive by it if we're driving from Chattanooga. It looks like basically like they had a contest for 5 or 6 year olds to draw your hero, and somebody drew Nathan Bedford Forrest and they made it into a statue.
Is that gold one?
It's now pink.
I've seen the statue.
He's got these blue gems for his eyes. He looks like a nutcracker basically for Christmas.
So top 5 worst people would be Nathan Bedford Forrest, Peyton Manning. Who else?
Tom Brady.
Well, obviously Eli Manning. Don't you start with your tongue. Don't you peddle your foolishness here. Eli Manning.
Rebecca said it's nightmare.
Derek Jeter, obviously. What's that?
Rebecca's here. Hi, Rebecca. She said that the statue is nightmare-inducing.
What's nightmare-inducing?
The Nathan Bedford Forrest statue.
Oh, that. What did I do? I'm a nightmare, I thought she was talking about you. I don't call you Nightmare for nothing.
Okay.
Hey, Rebecca.
But yeah, that statue is like, it's so fucking ugly. It's hilarious. And someone painted it pink. And it's on private property.
A gold statue I want to.
So they can't, Ben said Derek Jeter. Liza, that statue is the perfect representation of him. Nathan Bedford Forrest deserves that statue. Yeah, he does.
I mean, how bad of a person you got to be to have not only your statue taken down, but they want to dig you up and throw you in the dumpster. Even Lewis Powell's head got buried.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right? I mean, no one's dug up John Wilkes Booth.
No.
Benedict Arnold, yeah.
And Jim said there was a huge fight over removing Nathan Bedford Forrest bust from the Capitol in Nashville earlier this year. Oh my God, that statue in Nashville is hideous. Oh yeah, it is. I remember the fight over removing the bust too. Like, he's the one guy I look at with this. If I see a picture of him, I just like it.
See, I look at Nathan Bedford Forrest as a guy who wasn't fighting for a cause. He was fighting because he just wanted to kill.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he talked about his, in the, you get the lost causers of the, the Shelby Foots of the world talk about how romantic he was at Shiloh and grabbing that soldier and being the final.
Whatever.
But it's like, the guy's a bad dude. I mean, come on. I'm not a big statue remover guy. I think every one of those is its own individual situation. We talked about the monuments one of those times. I think that's offline. But I mean, someone like him, I mean, come on, you gotta be realistic about what he stood for, which he was first founder of the KKK.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a bad dude. He just was. I mean,
and I mean, I've run into people that have defended him before, and the one thing, like, I hear a lot, having Sherman as one of my favorite generals, people will say Sherman was a war criminal, and all I say is Nathan Bedford Forrest, Fort Pillow, and they can't come back with anything.
Do you know how many lives Sherman probably saved with his March to the Sea by ending the war as quickly as he did? If that thing went on, and we were down. I've told this before, but the Civil War had been simmering in this country for years before it finally happened. Even John Brown, Melville called him the meteor, all that stuff. But if that had gone on, if that simmering had gone on for 50 more years when the Civil War happened, and that war was fought in the 1900s with the chemical weapons and the airplanes and the machine guns, what a nightmare that would have been. But Sherman probably, and this is when I was down in Atlanta for the football game a couple of years ago, people don't realize that, as shitty as they perceived his march to be, and as you know, he burned down every building in the entire state of Georgia.
The state is still on fire. If a fire happens in Georgia, they blame Sherman.
But I mean, how many lives did he save? And it's almost like the Hiroshima bomb kind of in World War II, where it killed a lot of people, unfortunately, but at the same time, it saved the war from going on for a couple more years. I mean, at some point, you got to look at both sides of it. Was Sherman a good guy? No, he probably wasn't. He was a racist for his era. He was. He did a lot of stuff that probably he shouldn't have done, but he did it for the ultimate goal of protecting the country and ending the war as soon as he could. Yeah. And so, whether you agree with his tactics or not, okay, but that's the reality.
It was something that had to be done, and it was, and that's, people say the march was wrong, and the one thing that people seem to forget conveniently when they're arguing against the march is that Lee had a similar strategy when he was in Pennsylvania in the summer of 1863. He's foraging, he's doing basically what Sherman's bombers are doing, but the other thing he's doing too is he's capturing freed African Americans and those that, former slaves, and he's shipping them back down south. And that is something that it actually really bothers me that never gets mentioned.
What was interesting about Lee, though, in the Gettysburg campaign is he did that up until the battle started. Any blacks they caught during the battle, he didn't do that to, which is weird. He just left them. They weren't combatants, but they would run into free men in Pennsylvania coming through Maryland, coming through that. He would catch them, ship them back south, and they don't talk about that. I mean, they don't, But I like Sherman for ending the war. I've got issues with Sherman for what happened at Andersonville. We've talked about this, that he had an opportunity to liberate Andersonville, and he made a faint little effort to allegedly to go ahead and free them, and it just didn't happen. But I mean, if one thing that anybody who's listening to this should do is watch the movie Andersonville. Yeah, it's on Netflix. You can watch it. We watched it a couple nights ago.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube as well.
It's on YouTube. Yep. Watch it. It's a made for TV movie, so it's safe. There's no swearing. There's not a lot of blood or anything like that.
And I was not the script writer, so there's no fuckers.
Yeah, there's no. Exactly, but it gives you out of all the stuff I've read or I've seen, it gives you a really good idea. It talks about the Rangers in Andersonville. It talks about a lot of stuff that went on. It gives you a good idea, and it makes you wonder when you see the condition of these guys, how anybody could, the old "no soldier left behind" concept in the military has, how they could let it go, and it just it's an unfortunate part of his legacy that people don't really want to talk about, but I think it's something that you really got to study when you study Sherman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that doesn't get mentioned a lot. And I want to, you and I have talked about looking more into it and seeing if there's more to the story, seeing if anybody else had anything to say about Andersonville when they were on the march, and just kind of finding out, maybe
they know he They know that he knew about it, you know. But again, the thing about it though is, how can you take 30,000, basically, I hate to say it, live skeletons on your army? You can't. I mean, it goes back to Ebenezer Creek with the slaves. It was slowing the army down, and that's obviously why he didn't do it. And he had to weigh the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
And and again, we talk about the history, looking back on the history.
Yeah.
He didn't know if the entire Confederate army was waiting for him in Savannah. So he didn't know how many guys he needed. Ultimately, he could have broken off a division just to liberate them and bring them back, but he didn't know it. It's unfortunate. Again, 2020 vision being my benefactor, it's easy to look back on this, but it's just one of those things I've always smelled bad to me. It's always has.
Oh yeah, same here. And you've opened my eyes more to it. There's another aspect of Sherman that I had never really looked at or thought about, and I'm looking at it more. I do, in the last few months, I've come to view Sherman a little bit differently than what I have for the last few years. He's still one of my favorite generals to study, but I think I'm becoming a little bit more, I wouldn't say critical about him, but I'm seeing more sides to him I didn't see before, which is good. Like, you have to view them like you have to see everything.
And there's nothing wrong with being critical. I mean, if you're pointing out an obvious thing, I mean, again, it's not like he knew the future. Again, he thought he needed every single guy. He basically had 60,000 guys. He didn't know what battles were waiting for him. He needed all his men ultimately to fight. He thought Lee and eventually Johnston, right? So he needed his guys. I mean, as someone whose relative died in a Confederate camp, I've always looked at it a little more sensitive than others.
But I don't think it's a sensitive thing. I think it's a way that you can, tell the story and make it a little bit more well-known, because the camps, I don't think, get talked about enough. And I think that's good I shouldn't say good, but you having an ancestor there has made it something that you feel very strongly about, and that's good.
Yeah, my ancestor was in Florence, South Carolina. He wasn't in Andersonville. Mm-hmm. But but it's and you know what though, and I'm not going to absolve the North either, because you had Elmira, you had Camp Douglas in Chicago, there was some shitty camps.
Johnson's Island wasn't very good in the last year.
Johnson's Island,
not good.
Fort Warren here in Boston. I mean, the Northern Army was no angels either. It goes back to the Fort Pillow again with Forrest about the killing all the blacks that ended the prisoner exchange program, mm-hmm. right? That was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to Forrest again, right? Which a lot of this stuff and how much legacy he had that ultimately was going to lead to no more of the paroles, the prisoner exchanges.
Yeah.
We'll give you 20 privates for one captain. That whole thing that went on throughout the early part of the battle. It's unfortunate. It just is.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah. Eliza says Nathan Bedford Forrest was a human trafficker. Sherman wasn't. Case closed. Yep. 100% agree with you, Eliza. Ryan said, it's when they go, Forrest, a self-educated, self-made man, and the response is that he's a great argument for a formal education. It's like, I don't get that. It's like, there was a statue in downtown Nashville, I think, that said he was a good businessman. It didn't say what his business was.
Well, I mean, he was a self-made millionaire, but on the slave. I've been in Nashville. I've seen all this up in Nashville. And speaking of, there's a guy named John Banks who has a really good Facebook page, and he lives in Nashville. And he gives me shit about the Titans football, by the way, which for the playoffs I'm still not happy about. But he's a good follow because he lives in Nashville. He does a lot of Nashville, Tennessee Civil War history. So check him out too.
Yeah. Mike says we spent 250 years working ourselves up to having the Civil War, 4 years doing it, and now 150 years talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, reality.
Hey, Corey. Jacob has a question. Was that an order from Lee to do that? So Jacob is asking about the African Americans that were captured. That was in those orders he issued, right? For the 4.
It wasn't a march from Davis down. It was Lee's.
Lee, yeah.
It was. I mean, I think it was a situation where he would have said, okay, anybody who catches contraband, send them back to the South, and make no distinction between free men and contrabands. I don't know of a special order that talked about it. There probably was, but it was certainly something that they were all doing. It was get into Pennsylvania, and we're going to fill the shopping cart. We're going to try to stay in the state as long as we can. Anybody we get, we're going to send back.
Yeah. Mike has a question too. Was Point Lookout anywhere near as bad as Andersonville?
No, God, no. Andersonville was was the absolute top shelf worst. I mean, you want to talk about a concentration camp on American soil.
Yeah.
These people was 30,000 guys basically put in a, 1 mile square fenced in area with one running stream that was their water supply, which was also their latrine.
Yeah.
They were limitedly fed, barely. They would be shot on sight if they crossed right over. They call the deadline, which if you cross one area, they were killed. You only had older men and boys defending them. And we talked about this, Mary, a couple of days ago.
Yep.
I never understood why, if you've got about 100 people and some dogs defending this, and you're 30,000. Why they just didn't get together and say, "Fuck it, let's just rush the gate and get the hell out of here."
Well, maybe that's why they weren't feeding them as much, right?
I think the reason why was because was Henry Wirtz, right? He was the one, and he was smart about this though. He was the one who kept telling them, or kept raising the carrot in front of them, saying, "I'm hearing from Jefferson Davis that you're going to be exchanged soon." Yep. And so he kept that in their mind, and even though they had no intention. I mean, one of the greatest ironies about Andersonville was at the end of that, they closed Andersonville because of Sherman, because they thought they were going to be liberated. They told them all that they were going to be going home. They put them on trains, sent them all to Florence or other camps.
Can you imagine what that would have been like for them?
I mean, at that point, you're like, "Are you shitting me?" You think you're free, and they put you on a train and put you in another prison camp.
Yep.
It just sucks. It's a shitty part of history, but it's an important one to study. I mean, but that's the way it was.
Yeah. Ben says he enjoys that movie too. Yeah. I'm glad we watched it.
It's a good movie.
It was really, really good. It was really, really well done. It was made in 1989 or 1990.
It was a made for TV movie. Yeah. Like The Blue and the Gray and these other ones. Mm-hmm. But there was some pretty good actors in it. Who do we see? We talked about was in that. The guy who played Henry Harrison from Gettysburg was in it for a quick second. You can see him at the beginning. Wasn't Biff Tannen in that movie too? Or was that a different movie?
Yeah, Biff Tannen was in the movie.
Yeah, he was.
Because I messaged you when we were watching it. I'm like, holy shit, it's Biff Tannen.
Well, and it's funny if you're ever in Washington D.C., Mary, or anybody else, okay, Wirtz is buried about 100 yards from Mary Surratt.
Yeah. And he's, Confederate martyr, right?
It says, his gravestone, it says Confederate hero and martyr is what it says on it. You got to visit him when you go. I mean, of course, God knows how much I love Mary Surratt,
I love her too.
I know. But you got to visit Wirtz, and he's buried. I mean, he was the only person hanged by the U.S. government on the Confederate side. So
he was. Yeah.
And he was a bad dude. I mean, again, the following orders thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like Alec says, here in Minnesota, we put Dakota people in concentration camps in 1862 in a different war. Yeah, there's that. We have things like that in Canada too. Like we have the residential schools where we, basically took Indigenous children from their parents and put them in schools and forced them to speak English, forced them to forget about what their culture was and all that. And we finally have started, rightly so, apologizing for it. Because it was absolutely horrible. So there is that stuff that goes on too. Ryan said, actually, speaking of millionaires, I'm always impressed by how many really, let me go back here. Really well-heeled men volunteer to fight. Wade Hampton funds his own Legion. Phil Kearney has received the largest inheritance in U.S. history when his father died. James Wadsworth owned a huge amount of real estate in New York. In the Union, these guys could have paid a substitute. Kearney and Wadsworth fight until they are killed. I always wondered whether the higher classes were better represented in the Civil War than subsequent wars. Typical British person concerned with class. Oh, that's a really good point, though, because there's also the so Wilder and his Lightning Brigade. Wilder paid for all those rifles for his men. A lot of them paid him back, but still, like the money you would have had to have to fight that. Well, I think there is kind of a thing where rich people weren't fighting, they were paying for substitutes, but Ryan raises a good point here. Like maybe there was more of them fighting than what we thought.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what's great about studying the people. I mean, Wilder, they paid for those repeaters, and that was a big thing. It was kind of like the 6th Michigan, Gettysburg, the cavalry with Custer, those guys, they had repeaters as well. It's not the most accurate weapon, but it's still, it makes you sound like, it makes it feel like you have a lot. If they had repeaters, if Buford had them at Gettysburg, it could have held off. Heath's guys a little longer because they had no idea how many they were fighting. They still had the you know, the breech loaders, the back end loaders. So it's the same deal. But I don't know. Hey, Fritz, what's going on,
man? Leonard, the Confederates would have loved to have exchanged all of Anderson's. Jim, he brings up John Ransom's Andersonville Diary is heart-wrenching. My great-great-great-grandfather, William H. Sword, who fought on both sides of the war, was sent to Belle Isle. Luckily, he was eventually exchanged. Wow, both sides of the war. That's interesting. And Leonard said, but the Union shut down the exchange system to cut off the replenishing of rebel manpower. Fritz said hi Fritz, they weren't contraband depending upon the status. They were likely fugitive slaves. You seem to be forgetting about the fugitive slave law was in effect part of the Compromise of 1850. That's a good point too.
It was, but Fritz, the thing, a lot of the Pennsylvania blacks weren't escaped slaves, so they were free men. A lot of them that were brought back. He's right about the Fugitive Slave Act, but a lot of the people who were brought back were never slaves. That was the problem. You know, they made no distinction between the two.
Yeah, which is again something that does
it's I mean, it didn't happen according to the Shelby Foots and the Douglas Saltball Freemans.
Well, no, it doesn't fit into the lost cause narrative, right?
No, it doesn't.
I read a really good article actually. So he's been a guest on our sibling podcast, Real Twitter, a few times. His name's Dr. David J. Kent. He writes a really wonderful blog, and he makes sure he posts a link to his blog post on the Real Twitter Facebook page. He wrote a really good article, one of the best I've read, about the Confederate monuments and their removal, and how when people say, is it erasing history? And he says, it's not, because it's lost cause history. It's not actual history.
Well, I mean, erasing history would be if you just stopped teaching it and it didn't exist. I mean, taking down a monument is not erasing. And I always got a kick out of that. It's not erasing history because the history's still there. I mean, a monument is a glorification of a person or an event by definition.
Yep, and it's basically the rewriting or the forgetting about to elevate these people as heroes and change the story.
No one's talking about closing the Confederate museums in the South. No one's talking about banning up the Confederate flag and museums. And look, I get it. But again, we talked about before, the monument issue has been going on for 150 years. This isn't new. Social media makes it sound like it's this brand new thing, but they've been fighting Confederate monuments since the day they went up. And
it's even between what were the Confederate states at Gettysburg. Like everybody would try to put up a bigger monument.
Well, it's, Virginia put up their monument first, which is not the Lee Monument, it just has Lee on it, but it's a Virginia one. The North Carolina had to put theirs up. And then it kind of went down the line. But I think Tennessee, 1988 was the most recent one, I believe, that went in.
There's also the Nicolay and Hay Monument.
Yeah, that's a good one. But Texas Monument went in 1963, which is the 100th anniversary. But their monument, it's funny because if you read the monuments, right, like when I go to these places, I read the monuments, I always put them in the context of when they were put in. And the Texas Monument talks a lot about equality and things like that, even though it's a Confederate monument. And it was put in the middle of the civil rights stuff in the 60s. And so it makes total sense when you read the context at the time. Yeah. The Duluth monuments, Louisiana, Mississippi, those ones who went in, that was much more of a lost cause-y one, especially Mississippi, where if you read it, they wanted to have all kinds of stuff put in their monument that was factually untrue. The original monument for Mississippi talked about it blamed Richard Ewell, which had nothing to do with that. It talked about soldiers still buried in the area, which they weren't. They took that out. And they went to the Supreme Court in Mississippi, and they sued the Gettysburg National Military Park to have their verbiage put in, and they made a compromise. But I've always laughed at the fact that, Mary, do you know who the name of the Supreme Court justice who presided for Mississippi was? Tom Brady. There you go. So Tom Brady again. It was. So he was going up against the giants of military history. So at least that's one giant he can fucking beat. God. But anyway.
Leonard said, here in Mississippi, we finally changed our state flag this year. Glory, hallelujah. And Allie B.
I saw that. Yeah.
You mean to tell me that Lee didn't walk on water? I've been fed lies all my life, right?
Well, Allie, he would just sit there and turn water into wine, and that's what he did. That was the whole thing. But I mean, look, I mean, the whole Lee thing. Yes, you could read the stuff, and you could read. There are so many things you can read on Lee. There's a really good. I saw it today on Facebook. Somebody asked about what's the best modern biography of Robert E. Lee. There's a book. I forget who wrote it. I have it. It's called "The Man Who Would Not Be Washington." Was the name of the book. And it talks about Robert E. Lee's history, about how he was going to be the George Washington of the South, the guy that, and it talks about all his flaws. It's a pretty good read, Mary. You should want to enable you another goddamn book, but there you go.
Yep, there we go.
Well, you could borrow this one.
Thanks.
Oh, I have. You know what though? I have to publicly thank you. You mailed me a nice book over the weekend. I got it in the mail the other day, and the funny part, we talked about this. The funny part about it was, so I get a package in the mail and I open it. It's from Amazon and it's a book. And I'm staring at it going, I don't remember ordering this. And I said, you know what? Look, I remember one time when I had a couple of too many beers and I downloaded the entire Spice Girls Essential album to my song thing. And I remember that whole thing. Yeah. I'm like, I don't remember ordering this. I'm like, oh my God. And then Mary fessed up and goes, oh, I mailed you a book.
Well, I asked you because I got the email notification. I said, did you get a package from Amazon? And then you're like, you sent me that?
Well,
oh, God, I don't have Alzheimer's.
Listen, I all I could think of was early onset. I'm like, I do not remember ordering this, and I do not. I'm like, oh my God. But you could have told me it was coming.
I did.
I thank you. I really appreciate it.
I ordered. Okay. So I'm going to tell you publicly.
This is after the fact stuff, by the way. But okay.
Going to tell you publicly right now that you have 2 more books that are going to be arriving, hopefully this week.
Nice.
So there, I told you publicly. Everybody's heard me tell you. Secondly, I told you when I ordered them. I remember ordering them and sending you a message on that Wednesday when we were both off, and I just said I just ordered you some birthday gifts.
But I remember you said, but yes, I know. But I got this package. It didn't come from Ontario. It came from like Amazon. So I'm like, I was like, but I remember looking at the book going, okay, I'm happy. This is a great book. I'm like, I do not remember ordering this. And that is it. I'm not drinking ever again. I'm going to start eating vitamin B12 for my memory. That's it. But then you finally told me and I was like, oh, thank God.
Well, it's because I got the shipping notification. And then, the book I got you was by Anne Sarah Rubin about Sherman's March in American Memory.
Awesome. Hey, and I don't know, John, if you're still on, John Heckman, I mailed you something over the week. Let me know if you received it yet. I shot something down to your address. So let me know if you're still on, let me know if you got it. I mailed him something. I was curious if he got it yet.
I hope he likes it.
I'm sure he will.
I think he will. It is. I won't say.
But unlike you, I put a note in it so we knew it was from. So we didn't think he was losing his goddamn mind.
I can't put a note in it because I'm ordering it from Amazon.com, and I'm doing that so because if I order something from Amazon Canada, it's got to go across the border, and then you could get charged with duty for it.
Well, listen, look, thank you again. I very, very, very much appreciate it. All I'm telling you is I had a holy shit, I'm losing my mind moment when I got it. I did. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it, and it's gonna be an awesome book. So I appreciate that.
It's a really good book. I'm gonna read it again too, just in preparation for our second episode about the March to the Sea. Liza said it was illegal to possess the USA flag in the Confederacy, so the erasing history argument is ironic. It very much is. Mike says, if the Confederate monuments were all about Civil War history, Richmond would have had one on Longstreet. They did not. Longstreet made his peace with the North and worked with them in Reconstruction. That wasn't the message the monuments were meant to represent when they were put up a generation later. The monuments were about white supremacy. I grew up in Richmond and it broke my heart to see them turned down and desecrated, but now it amazes me they lasted this long. Hey, Marco. Ryan, I'm trying to avoid book enabling this week. So far, so good. Allie B, drunk book buying sounds very dangerous for the wallet. It is. I remember
one time, I'm like,
1 out of 10 do not recommend.
See, I have Apple Music now, but back when it was the iTunes stuff, I'm like, when the hell did I buy the Rocky IV soundtrack? And then I realized, like, oh, that's right, I went out last week and I forgot about that.
Just back to Mike's point about Longstreet monuments. Like Longstreet is one of the Confederate generals that he and Claiborne have next to nothing for monuments. Claiborne's got 2 and Longstreet I think has 1.
I think Longstreet has 2.
Right,
he has the one at Gettysburg. What what's so funny was the guy who made the Gettysburg monument for Longstreet, his name is Gary Castile. Okay. Yeah. Weird dude, but good guy. And so he has a shop right across from the Jenny Wade house, right near the hotel I usually stay at. And so I stumble there. I talk to him from time to time, and he defends that monument to the death. And he has if you go on YouTube, you can type in Longstreet Monument Gettysburg and watch his little video he did. It explains a lot about why the horse looks small and a lot of the stuff he gets ripped on. But interesting guy. It's just an interesting guy. Little bit out there, but he's still a good guy. But check that out. But I think the other one is in South Carolina.
I think so too. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, in Claiborne's Claiborne's one. There's one in Ringgold Gap, and then there's one in Helena, Arkansas. The one in Helena, Arkansas is fucking weird looking. Yeah, Roger's calling me out.
Yeah,
okay,
Roger,
yeah,
the man.
okay, fuck.
Love
Good
you,
to
Roger.
know.
God. Hey, Roger, I owe you a beer for that one, man. The next time we hang out, we do a wing challenge somewhere. I'm getting you a beer for that comment right there. God bless him.
And I'm just gonna glare at Roger, when I meet you in person, I'm just gonna glare at you in Canadian and say I'm sorry.
You could have. I mean, I'm just saying.
I know. Fuck. Well, anyway, I've told you publicly now there are 2 more books to arrive for you.
I know. Look, first of all, Roger, is awesome. He is.
Yeah, he's a cool
but
guy.
He just increased his standing with me because he did that. So that's awesome. So perfect. I owe him a beer for that one. That made my whole day. That's awesome.
Yeah, Ryan's usually one of our best book enablers too. Trying to avoid book enabling. There's a new book about meat out I want to get by Kent Masterson Brown. I'm really tempted to get that one.
He's a good dude. He follows us on Twitter too.
Yeah, he is. He's a cool guy. What book? I have Lee's Retreat. That book.
That's a good. That Lee's Retreat book is fantastic.
And Lennon said we need. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that is mandatory reading for any Gettysburg aficionado, any Gettys nerd like us. That is because people think the battle ended on July 3rd. That was it. But when you read his retreat, you read about Imboden's, taking the prisoners. I mean, the wounded out, Monterey Pass, all the way through Winchester, and it's a great read. It goes on and on. And it really talks about how successful the Gettysburg campaign actually was for the Confederacy, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like we said before, the battle was not a good thing, but they, whatever it was, miles and miles and miles worth of wagons full of food and hay and cauliflower and Pop-Tarts and all the stuff they had to get
Lucky
out
Charms.
of the state. Lucky Charms.
Legos.
I think the Legos were a sore spot because of Pickett Charge, Mary.
I don't know. They had to bring them back for the kids because the Megos sucked. I mean, like Megos don't fit together properly. They just don't.
Megos, for God's sake. And now, who's with the early onset now? Okay, there you go. But I think the Gettysburg campaign, when you look at the big picture for what their overall goal was to support their army with munitions for the rest of 63, it was a success. It was. And I get people ripping on me on Twitter for that. And I've said it before that yes, you have to separate the battle from the campaign.
Exactly.
The battle was a dumpster fire for them, but the campaign was a success because he was able to feed his army for the rest of the calendar year, and that was the whole point of it. So mission successful, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like people don't. The opposite of that is the Atlanta campaign, which actually in a way was a failure for Sherman because he didn't get the AOT, but he got Atlanta. But as far as what his objective had been was to destroy the army of Johnson, later Hood's army, he didn't do it. So
no, I mean you got to look at the moment what the ultimate goal was. Someone who the hell was it, Mary? We were talking to somebody over the week where someone said, "What if McClellan had sacked Richmond? Would that have been the end?" Remember? Who the hell was that?
That was on the round table.
That's right.
We made a really good discussion about that.
Okay. Anybody who doesn't go on our Civil War roundtable, you really should go. And Fritz, I'm looking at you. You really, I need to see you, man. We gotta talk soon. But
Leonard was on and he participated.
You know what, Mary? You know what? I'm having a good time, and you gotta piss all over this. But stupid Canadian. But you know what though?
You fucker.
But I mean, see, I'm not on my track now. What the hell am I talking about?
Richmond and McClellan taking Richmond.
But again, the goal was, I mean, Lincoln himself had said, your goal is not Richmond. This will come later on. This wasn't so much specific to McClellan, but the goal is not Richmond. The goal was Lee.
Yeah.
And Lee was a domino. So if you took Lee's army out, one of 22 Confederate armies operating in the American Civil War, but it was the biggest and most important one, you take them out, the whole thing collapses. If they'd have taken Richmond, that's right, we were talking about. This was a question from John Postlewhite. This was his question.
Yep.
They would have moved the capital to Atlanta or Birmingham. The capital was irrelevant at the time. It was the armies. It was the armies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Leonard said, we need to raise funds and get a Sherman monument and McPherson monument at Vicksburg. Makes no sense to have both. I hope I'm getting my Roman numerals right here. 13th Corps commanders, McClernand and Ord, and not the 15th and 17th.
What's that?
Hope I got that right. Corps, yeah, I do agree with you, Leonard. There's actually, speaking of McPherson monuments, there's a really cool one at McPherson Cemetery in Clyde, Ohio, where he's buried. That's a really cool monument. I've always thought the one monument they need to have in Richmond is to General Thomas.
I assume there's Thomas. I've never seen a Thomas monument.
That would be the ultimate right there.
Is there a Birdseye monument somewhere?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, McPherson. Yeah, there's a Birdseye monument.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Thomas.
Well, I did. I was talking about McPherson, and then I said the ultimate
so you're
monument.
just all over the place, Mary. I just have to follow.
ADD is a wonderful thing.
It's all good. It's all good. But yes, Leonard, you're off. I'll be honest. We had 14 participants. We had more than that, but I thought the round, Leonard, you were awesome. You killed it at the round table today, man. I'll tell you. I love that because I just sat back and just muted myself and sat back and watched it. Discussion. Even to the point where Fincher over here says, "Everything okay?" I'm like,
I messaged him. I'm like, "Is everything okay?" And then I'm like, "Okay, good. You're good."
Enjoying this. I'm like, it's fucking awesome. I get to sit back and watch everybody hang out and shoot the shit. I don't need to talk. God knows I talk too fucking much anyway. But it was great. It was you guys, Leonard. You were the man the other day, man. You were great. You were fantastic.
And Allie B, and then there's
the Alleys, Jim Miller, all those guys.
Mark
Mark was a Boomer, all those guys. It was a great talk.
Jonathan as well. No, it was a lot of fun. Amelia was there as well. So yeah, it was.
Although Allie K was giving me shit for the whole bike thing, which I
don't fucking blame her for that.
Oh wow, look at you. Okay.
Allie B said, "Listen, I love going to visit that Longstreet Monument. No one is ever there, even if the horse looks a little stressed." The Tom Berenger Monument is.
I mean, the thing about it though is that if you talk to Gary, the sculptor, he makes a really compelling case when you speak with him about it. And you can't help talking with him about coming away with it, going, you know what? Okay, I get it now. Mm-hmm. I mean, the park made him put him in a Confederate officer coat, even though he wore a farmer coat during the battle.
Yeah.
The Park Service made him put certain things in there when they made the statue.
Yeah.
And I know I'm pretty sure Longstreet's widow was one of the people. Actually, how the hell did that work out? Because if Longstreet's widow,
she'd be like 100. Yeah, I know she was younger than him, but she was in her 60s or 70s in World War II.
Isn't there a picture of her at the dedication of that monument?
I think his granddaughter or daughter.
I thought it was his wife who went to that.
She was in her 60s or 70s in World War II.
Well, we'll have to look up that one. Because I thought she was at the monument. Oh, you know what? No, you know what it was? She was not at that. She was part of the people who wanted a monument built for him, and it was rejected over the years, and that's what it was. And she was dead, obviously, by the time they built it. But she was part of the initial. I think his
granddaughter was there or something like that. Somebody related to Longstreet was at that dedication, I think. I'm thinking correctly.
It was something like that, but whatever. It doesn't matter. She didn't make it. In case Mary.
Allie B says, "I thought that was so odd when I visited." She's referring to Vicksburg. How do you have one for McClernand and not Sherman or McPherson? Right? That's weird. Like, yeah, definitely need to get that going.
Well, it goes. There's a really good video. All right, so there's our friend Dan Vermilia, Mary, who's a ranger at Gettysburg, has a really good video.
Your internet is really choppy right now, Darren.
Talks about how a lot of the Union. No, is it?
Yeah.
I feel choppy. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're good now.
All right. So anyway, as I was saying, Okay, so I forget where I dropped off, but our friend Dan Vermilia, who is one of your fellow Indian fan friends,
Yep.
okay, but he's a ranger at Gettysburg, and he has a really good presentation he does about monuments at Gettysburg. And he talks about how a lot of the monuments are built in places where people who are going to visit them are going to appreciate. That's why there's only 30 monuments at Gettysburg versus the 1,300 Union ones.
Yep.
And you wonder if a place like Vicksburg, there's not going to be a lot of Union monuments because it's more Confederate people who are going to build them, because most of their fans, the ones who are going to be visiting, get Vicksburg. And that's probably why. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, no, and Leonard actually makes that point too. He said, I always assumed Sherman was left out due to the whole lost cause hatred, but McPherson, who hates McPherson, exactly. McPherson was loved and respected on both sides. Like, he was friends with Hood. And when McPherson was killed at the Battle of Atlanta, Hood was really upset about it.
He was bummed. And, Hood was, and Sherman, they had those letters about it. But
Sherman was like, Sherman couldn't stop crying about it, because Sherman thought he was going to go on to lead the armies. He could possibly have been president. He was one of the best that the Union had. Jim said, I'm all about book enabling. My Amazon Civil War nonfiction wish list is 600 titles long. Holy shit.
Mike says, where's a Schimmelfennig monument? It's so funny. Last time I was in Gettysburg, we were walking on Baltimore Pike. We walked by the area where Schimmelfennig was hit out for those days during the battle. We talked about a monument there. So I guess there's that alley, so I guess we can throw one in there. Schimmelfennig. He gets shit on. I mean, the funny part, what I don't understand about Schimmelfennig, he was so close to Cemetery Hill. Like, why did he just keep going? He was like 200 yards away, and he stayed there.
11th Corps, right?
He was 11th Corps. He was in Sheriff's.
So people who don't like the 11th Corps be like,
but I mean, but the thing about it though is where he was hiding out. He was between the Farnsworth House and, where that gas station is. The gas station at the corner where the old Wagon Hotel was.
Yep.
If he kept going, I don't understand. I mean, I guess I don't know. I see that. I'm like, why he hit out instead of just keep going? And I think he would have made it. But he hit out in a pig farm. Yeah. And people give him shit for it. But there's a little monument, there's a placard showing where Schimmelfennig's where he was. But, right, good for him.
Ryan said, in the new year, I'm planning to get enough further bios so I can refight Gettysburg on my floor with just the text representing the Army Corps Division Brigade commanders. Actually, it does highlight where there are serious gaps. Thank God I don't collect regimental histories yet. Mike said the Gettysburg campaign took the pressure off Virginia during the growing season. Jim said, I set aside $50 out of every paycheck to buy an Amazon gift card, and that's my book budget, except when I go to used bookstores. Used bookstores are the best.
What's great about it, I go to my local Civil War Roundtable, and you pay like $5 for scratch tickets, or like little not scratch tickets, those little lottery tickets, those little things they have, the ones you get for like little, whatever. But you pay $5, and I end up walking out of there with like 5 books, and that's where I get most of my books. Although with COVID now, my roundtable has been shut down, made it a Zoom thing, but it is really, really cool to be able to go to these. I must have 1,000 Civil War books, Mary. It's crazy. It's just insane. Too. I got some really good, a lot of first edition stuff. Yeah. That I have.
Well, I've been getting Civil War books since I was 6 years old, so.
6 years old must have been an important year in your life, Mary. Everything happened when you were 6 years old. Was that the year you got attacked by that ostrich?
No, I was 3 when I got attacked by the ostrich. Which, full disclosure, because Weeks is going to say something about it anyway, there's a YouTube video of me being attacked by an ostrich when I'm 3
years old. If you want to see,
just look for when peacocks attack, and you'll find it.
Okay. Well, if you want to see a video of a 3-year-old Mary being attacked by a bird, it's on YouTube. You know what? I'm gonna have to put that on the page. Tweet that. Because picture Mary with her 3-year-old Mary, okay, yelling "fucker" at a bird, 3 years old. It is the funniest goddamn thing. And the funny part about it was when you sent that to me was forever ago now. Yeah. I'm like, well, it's funny, but I'm like, what? I don't know if there was any psychological trauma and stuff like that, but you still got that scar on your face.
I do have a scar from it. Yeah.
When you got attacked by the bird.
Fucker nearly took my eye out. I got bit by an ostrich on that trip to Florida too.
Well, we gotta post that. I have it saved in my YouTube favorites. There's no doubt.
I have no shame. The screech I let out when it happens is It's quite the thing.
Such language too. Such language.
Leonard said, Zoom said there were 14 participants at the bottom of the screen. Shimmel fucker can't stop us from participating.
I'm never going to live that down. I'm trying to be nice and saying you all are participants. And I was going to say no one's just a visitor, and I fucked it up. Okay.
Jim said this Paychex gift card went towards the purchase of The Office, the complete series.
Oh, I cannot believe, Mary, that you have not watched The Office.
Well, I don't think Allie B has either.
Anybody, you know what? Okay. Anybody, like, I get it. Okay, whatever. But I'm saying is that anybody who has not seen that is really missing out because it is so good. It is so good.
Jim said, any excuse to take 4 hours off work. LOL, love the roundtable the other night. Yeah, Jim, thank you for joining us, and thank you to everybody who did. It was awesome.
No, definitely, really, Jim. I don't think you appreciate how much we appreciate you being on that.
Yeah,
you're taking time off, and you're a good dude, obviously, and we really appreciate you being on that. So thank you for joining that. So hopefully you stick with it because we love having you on there.
Yeah, we love everybody who comes on it. And
you're a great dude, no doubt about it.
And everybody who comes on it is awesome too, like Ryan, Allie B, Allie K, Leonard, all of them. And there's some that aren't here, obviously, like Mark and all that.
Allie K's mad at me about the whole bike thing.
I love Allie K. She's awesome.
She actually is awesome. She gives me shit about the football too. She was giving me about Notre Dame and everything. I was like, good for her. I mean, I like it.
Oh yeah.
Not many people in my life who give me a hard time.
Yeah. Well, except me.
I know you're different. You're a black heart. You're a bad person. You're all come on.
I know. Elijah says, one of my lottery dreams is to build the biggest Virgin on Gaudy monument to General Thomas in his home county of Southampton, Virginia, on a private ground but visible to everyone. He deserves it. Liza, I will contribute to that. To General Thomas. I would contribute to that.
Of course you will.
Yeah.
Well,
I would love to see one of Howard. Another one of Howard.
Well, I'm going to be, just so you know, Mary, I'm going to take all my retirement and I'm going to build a Charles Tilden monument.
Heckman would love that.
16th Main. It's going to be built. I'm telling you right now. It's going to be pretty cool. But the round table is really cool. And to be honest, it was one of those things. See, for the people who were on it, Mary and I were invited to go on a lecture that night afterwards. Okay, so we had to cut it to an hour. So a friend of ours, her name is Lisa Samia. She's an author. She was doing a presentation for the National Civil Roundtable Congress thing.
Yeah.
So we got invited to go to that, and so we went on, and it wasn't that good. We should have stayed on the thing. Admittedly, we talked about that afterwards. It just wasn't. So it was like a recording of a previous one, which is kind of like watching the best of Johnny Carson or some damn thing. It made no sense. So, but we had a great time with it. Ryan was on from across the pond, and it's fun because it's just like I said before. It's a great opportunity to just hang out, and it's not. We're not. I mean, look at us. We're not the most formal people in the world, especially that one. You know, but it's a good opportunity to just hang out, and that's the thing about it too. Is most people in our lives don't have someone to talk with about this stuff, right? And so it's great to be able to converse. So if anybody who doesn't do the roundtable, definitely do it. And look at you, Ben Frail. I don't know where the hell you were, by the way. You're always running your mouth about Frank Wheaton and your goddamn monuments, and Frank Wheaton died for our sins and all the bullshit you talk about.
Frank Wheaton is Jesus.
So you should come on the roundtable and you can make your case. You can make your case.
Ryan said we have the Corcoran Monument in Sligo. I'm not sorry, Ryan. Ireland.
What? Sadly,
Claiborne will never get one backing the wrong horses he did. Actually, there are a number of Civil War monuments in Sligo. I can't speak.
I guess Sligo, isn't it?
Sligo, probably. The Fighting 69th Memorial and the General Irish one. The number of Irishmen involved competes with the First World War figure, so I'm surprised there's only 2 or 3 monuments in Ireland. Ben said, good show. Y'all need to get on that. I'm on Team Weeks here. Leonard said, you're forgiven, Darren. Mississippi is the hospitality state after all.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, but if you can make it, that's cool. I'm busting your balls, obviously. But if you can make it, cool. If not, then I totally get it. But it's pretty cool. It's just a fun thing. It'd be fun to have you on. So.
Ryan said, I would say that I really enjoyed the roundtable, but I find that saying I was rather pissed and had a great crack gets misinterpreted by alarmed Americans. # divided by common language.
I don't get bothered by anything. I love it.
No.
Love it.
Jim says, oh, trust me, I work in a call center customer service now permanently from home, and I am an iPhone hell. Yes, you mentioned that, Jim. 8 hours of back-to-back calls. So time off is very much looked forward to. Well, we appreciate you taking the time for us.
No, we all have our real lives with work lives, and
Yeah.
but it's just you need some kind of release and some kind of outlet, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I know, I mean, Mary, you and I have talked about this a billion friggin' times. I mean, the fun we have just doing this podcast. It's such a escape from all reality in every way, shape, or form. You know.
No, and I've learned so much more. I I'm changing my opinion about people, about generals, seeing the Civil War in another light. Just the episode we just did to get back to that. So not only was Brown's Ferry really, really important, but I think the second most important thing that happens in the Chattanooga campaign is Osterhaus getting stranded.
Well, Peter Osterhaus getting stranded, and for folks who didn't listen to the podcast or don't follow Chattanooga, he was supposed to continue on across the pontoon boats across the Tennessee to help basically support Sherman attack on Missionary Ridge.
Only he's not on Missionary Ridge, as we'll discuss. He's on fucking Billy Goat Hill.
Right. So we'll get to that next time. So there you go. There's a teaser for next time. But the pontoon boat sinks and he's left behind. Okay. And because he gets left behind, he ends up being transferred to Hooker's army. So now Hooker has an extra bunch of guys to help attack Lookout Mountain. And because of that, it changes the whole dynamic of that battle. So now they're attacking Lookout Mountain, and it just, of course, not to spoil it, but they win, and it pushes them all. It's one of those things that just by happenstance it just changes the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It'd be like if, for the Gettysburg people, it'd be like if something happened at the field of Pickett's charge, and instead of that, they had to attack her on the right side, and they did that and won. It's just one of those things that just happened that worked out well. And and it's a lot of fun to talk about. It really, really is.
Oh yeah.
Now, I'll be honest, I had the most fun researching this one. Than I have. I'll be honest. Mary, I didn't know a hell of a lot about Chattanooga.
You talked about it as if you'd been studying it for years. And I haven't. I know like Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge and all that, and I knew a little bit about Browns Ferry and Wauhatchie, but to look at it, even to do what we did, especially the discussion. Spoiler alert: they took the mountain. Well, yes, that's what the meme was about today.
Allie, stop giving away the story. You're gonna kill our freaking viewer cast next week. but I knew about it basically. But when I really got into it and studied, because we don't script these podcasts. We just basically do our own individual kind of research, and then we just shoot the shit and we just record it.
And
that's
how
it goes.
Handwritten notes too. Like I've gone back to handwritten notes.
It's embarrassing how lack it. But we play up each other obviously very, very well. And it was a very fun battle to study because it's very logical in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Very much like Gettysburg in that regard, or Antietam, but very different from Chickamauga. Yeah. Or very different from Shiloh, where it seemed like things were happening all over the place. Yeah. But it was a fun one to study. So that wasn't great about it. I probably wouldn't have studied too much about Chattanooga. But now it's definitely, Mary, we go there in the spring. We'll have a lot of fun there. Now,
oh, yeah. And I haven't been, I've been up to Lookout Mountain. So I've only seen where Wauhatchie, Browns Ferry, and Missionary Ridge. And actually the Airbnb I stayed at last time I was there was in the area of Missionary Ridge and Tunnel Hill. But I've yet to actually step on those places. I've been to. I
can't believe you went there. Didn't go there.
Well, Missionary Ridge isn't in a very good spot, and we just ran out of time. Like I was only there for like 2 full days, right? So next time I plan on going we'll probably be there for.
If you go out of the bars once in a while and visit the historical sites,
right?
Mary.
I know.
Call me Mary.
No.
Someday we'll tell that story.
People might witness it if they're at karaoke. Ryan said, it's dark here now, so I can start the whiskey now from the Carney mug. Yes. What kind of whiskey, Ryan? I'm guessing Irish, like he was drinking the other night. Allie B, I'm sorry, should I not mention what happened at the Ridge? Sherman and the Ship Show.
Allie, shh, no one knows yet. Let's say this. We'll talk about it next week.
That's fine to talk about. Mike said, wasn't Douglas MacArthur's father a regimental leader in the attack at Missionary Ridge? Ben answered that, said, yes, both earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. And Ryan asked, is that Arthur MacArthur? I think it is. Yeah.
Not to like besmirch or like water down the Medal of Honor, but it's much harder now to get than it was back then. There was a whole bunch of, I know there's a number I forgot, but number of Medal of Honor winners for the Civil War, but a lot of them were given for very basic amounts and very basic reasons. Versus nowadays, it's a little bit harder to get. And the Confederates do not do those. They do not do a Medal of Honor.
There's some Canadians that won the Medal of Honor in the
Civil War. Lee had felt that just a simple mention in the battle report was enough. That's how it was. But a lot of these guys, I mean, there's guys like John Bigelow at Gettysburg, obviously Alonzo Cushing, who just got one a couple of years ago. Nothing they did wasn't heroic, but a lot of them were given for very basic reasons. Yeah. So it's a lot harder now. So you have to kind of take those. I don't want to water down the Medal of Honor. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that it was much easier to get back then than it would have been now.
Yeah, they did give out a lot of them. I know there was a few Canadians who were Medal of Honor winners in the Civil War.
Probably for like hockey player games and stuff.
Yeah, when they played hockey against the Confederates. Yeah. Some things were settled over hockey. Howard's obviously a Medal of Honor winner, but I think that was awarded like years later, wasn't it?
I mean, they were all awarded later, but I think he obviously got it for Fair Oaks, but I don't think it was that much later though. I mean, I could be totally wrong. It would be the first.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't.
But I thought he got it sooner versus, I mean, like I'm trying to think like when Joshua Chamberlain got his Medal of Honor, what he did. Yeah. But what he did was a little bit different. I mean, nothing against Howard, but I think some of these guys got them for different reasons. Some of these guys, they're Medal of Honor winners who got them for literally picking up a flag off the ground. So I mean, I'm not. Look, I don't want you thinking I'm pissing on these guys. I'm not. I'm just saying that not all Medal of Honor winners are created the same historically. Is all I'm saying. Yeah,
I do know like the book that I'm reading, Thunder in the Mountains, about O.O. and his experiences in the West with the natives and all that. It talks about what happened to him at Fair Oaks. I had no idea he got shot through the wrist first on his right arm, and his brother Charles had to come over and tie something around his wrist, and then he got shot in the elbow, and he just looked down and he saw like how bad it really was. And then he had to wait 6 hours to have it amputated. And he was taken to, it was where some slaves lived. So he was in their bedroom, this slave couple, their bedroom was where he was for a while. And then he said he was taken to this other area to have it amputated. And he recounts it quite vividly in his memoirs. It was hard to read, like that part. I can't stand.
No, it's tough reading some of these things, but the reality is it's every story is a little bit different, obviously.
Yeah, got some comments here. Go back. So Ben said 2,000 Medal of Honors in the Civil War, and yes, if you did a study, you would see the action would be more of DSC SSBS. Ryan's drinking scotch. It's Speaker Burkow whiskey. The first job of every new speaker in the British House of Commons is to choose new whiskies. One generic one to be the House of Commons whiskey and one to be issued in his or own name. We take our politics very seriously here. I did not know that.
I think we need to move to England. I think I need to be done with it. I think to go back to my English heritage, Mary, and go.
Let's move to England.
Country again. You want to move to England? Deal. Sure, we're moving to England. I think that'd be a lot.
We'll go live in Enfield, and then we can hang out with Ryan.
Okay, well that's fine. But I think it seems to be a little less stressful than what I think,
Ben said two second Rhode Islanders got the Medal of Honor for placing the national and regimental colors on the parapet in Petersburg. Allie B said Horace Porter got the Medal of Honor for Chickamauga. And Ben said, yes, he was awarded in the 80s, and it was really because he forgot to duck. Jim said, yes, Arthur MacArthur was in the 24th Wisconsin Infantry. They were brigaded with the 36th Illinois Infantry, my great-great-grandfather's regiment. Yeah, Jim is, the genealogy he's done, like the research he's done is amazing.
No, Jim is awesome. He's awesome for a million reasons, but a lot of the genealogy stuff he's done has been really, really cool. And I think most people who, like we said earlier in this live, is most people who've done this have some sort of family history with the war, one side or the other. What's that?
Not me.
Well, it's okay. It's okay. You won't give me you are from a different country and all, but we'll give you a slide.
I mean, there was men from my county that fought here. But
I guess my point is that it's much more personal. Like my grandfather fought in World War II, and he was alive when I was until I was probably 18 or 19, and so he, you know what the thing about him though, which is he fought at the Battle of the Bulge, and this is the one thing that I regret, and well, many things I regret, but one thing specifically I regret was he would never talk about his World War II battle stories with me. He wouldn't talk about it. But you know, he would, you know, and this is a guy who played professional baseball with the Red Sox with Ted Williams, okay, in minor league ball, play with him, and he knew all these guys. He went off to war and stopped playing after the war, but he came home and I'd say, well, you found the ball. What was that like? And he's like, I just don't talk about it. Yeah, and he never would. And he died when I was probably 18. And it just, I get it, I do. Yeah. But so he wasn't one of these dudes who really pushed his memory on anybody else. But I do regret not hearing those stories, and that's one of those things. And I think, you know, it goes back to that whole memory thing and historical memory. And this is a real good firsthand knowledge of stuff.
Yeah, but it was tough for them to talk about it. Like I had a grandfather, so my mom's mom, who I never met, unfortunately, because he passed away in 1960. He was a veteran of World War II, and he was wounded a few times. He actually had shrapnel in his body that they couldn't remove, and that's what killed him, because it moved around in your body afterwards, and that's ultimately what killed him. But he was at Juno Beach a few weeks after the D-Day landing, but he actually went up through, you know, France and all that, eventually got to Holland for the liberation of Holland and all that. But the one thing that he did was he helped to liberate a concentration camp.
Yeah.
And he was a sniper, so he often was told to go ahead, and he said he killed German officers, and I've showed you what he brought back.
Yeah,
the flag with the bullet hole in it, which I uncomfortably inherited.
Right.
You know, but
I mean, it's still history, though.
It's still history. It's got a
know?
bullet hole in it from this firefight he was in this one place. But my mom said he never talked about it. My other grandfather, who I spent a lot of time with, was involved in the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. So he came over from England when he was 20 years old to train here. Met my grandma here, and she actually went back over to England before the end of the war to be with him. They were married before he went back, but then she went back over. But he told me some stories. Like he told me at D-Day, he was at one of the places where the planes took off, and he said he had friends that went in those planes and he never saw them again.
It's a sad thing.
And that's all he,
I mean, you know, but I mean, any of these guys, I forget how we got for this tangent, but you know,
your like just ancestors in the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the reality. That's right. That's right. So everyone has something. So I think there's a certain connection to it. Whether you're a Union guy or you're a Rebel guy, it's just. But you know, that's the best part about it. But I guess my point was, I think a lot of the World War II people are gone now. So there's that generation's now disappeared.
Yeah.
But I think I think there's definitely a lot of personal memory that can be had. But I think a lot of the personal memory from the Civil War is still there too. But a lot of these diaries we talk about, you know.
Yeah, no, the diaries are, I want to get more into reading those. Ryan said, the COVID crisis has prevented our new speaker from picking new whiskeys, real COVID consequences. That's like almost a crisis. That is definitely a crisis right there.
Yes.
Ben said, look at the Medal of Honor recipients these days. Kyle Carpenter jumped on a grenade and lived. Ryan likes the Carney Cross.
I mean, I don't want anybody think I'm leaving here think I'm pissing on a freaking Medal of fucking Honor one. That's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that you look at some of what some of the guys got them for back when, it's a lot different than it is now. You know,
exactly.
I mean, you look at a guy from the 19th Maine who at Gettysburg got one. 17th Maine, not 19th. 17th Maine literally got one, picked up a Confederate flag off of Emmitsburg Road. He picked it up off the ground. They get a Medal of Honor for that. So it's a lot different now. It's just what I'm saying.
Ryan said Bernie gave a Carney Cross to a nurse. Have any Civil War Medal of Honors been given to women? I'm not sure the answer to that, but that would be interesting. I'm going to guess maybe. Yeah. I think there might have been. Ben said Dr. Mary Walker is the only female to ever be awarded the Medal of Honor.
Is that true? The only ever? I don't doubt him. I'm sure he's right, but I thought there'd be more. I mean, they didn't give one to Clara Barton or Dorothea Dix or anybody.
I don't think so.
I believe him. I'm sure he's true. It's just it surprised me a little bit, you know.
Mike said one of the great things that happened during the World War II War Memorial dedication in DC was the Library of Congress got people of that generation there for it to record their remarkable experience of the war years. I asked the same thing. One guy told me a story he's never told anyone about cleaning out tank turrets that's been hit by the German 88 millimeter rounds. And Jim, book enabling alert, a great novel and made for TV movie that explores Civil War memory and PTSD is oldest living Confederate widow tells all. Oh, and Laura's here.
Hey, Laura.
What's up, gang? I might be in and out. Got to get my brain scrambled in a bit. Oh, good luck with that.
That's a good or bad thing.
Yeah. Hey, Laura, though. It's nice to see you.
That's pretty cool.
Ryan said, I have inherited all these war mementos, scorched Nazi Reichmarks, Austrian Empire coins from 1918, Napoleonic French coins from the Peninsula War, but most surprisingly was an orange CSA $20 note. We haven't worked out whether I have Confederate or Union relatives. Project for post-COVID times. Yeah, you might have to come over to the US and research that, Ryan.
I've got a relative who's got a lot of German World War II history, and some of the stuff you see, it's just.
Yeah, well, the thing I have, which I mean, I'll be honest, it's a banner with a swastika on it that my grandfather brought back from a fight he'd been in, and I inherited it. And
I mean, it's history. I mean,
yeah, it's history. It's part of his story. He also brought back a watch. He also brought back a watch and a ring. Like, he was a sniper, so he was one of these ones that he took souvenirs.
Yeah, well, a lot of them did. He's not. Yeah. I mean, if I were fighting in some war, of course, I go to Round Top. I take a rock from Round Top, and people give me shit for that probably. But it's so I know, but it's just one of those souvenir things. But yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, it's just I'm sure my grandfather had stuff. He just never said. He never told me. Never did anything. And so, but no, I can't blame. And I've seen. Obviously, you've showed me that stuff that you have it. But it's still history.
Oh yeah,
but it's not like you're promoting it. It's not like you're flying it above your house or anything.
No, it's the story behind it. It's the fact that there is it was part of the fight he was in this one building that he took it because he had to fight really hard. And that imagine you're running around in I don't know where it was, but you're chasing some guys through the building trying to get them and all that. You're going to take something from that probably.
I mean, that's a brutal thing.
Oh yeah.
God, World War II. Jesus God.
Never talked about it. Just we knew.
Yeah, my grandfather would. He would never ever talk about it, no matter how much you tried. And he was a typical Irish drunken guy. We'd sit in my kitchen, my grandparents' kitchen, drunk as a skunk, and he would, but no matter how drunk he was, I'm not talking about it. I could never talk about it. And at first I thought, I'm like, okay, fine. But I was a kid at the time. I wasn't, this is years ago. But he died. Never told me the stories, which is too bad. But I know he had a bullet mark in his arm that ran up his arm. It was like a bullet. It was like a big line, like a scar. Like he got shot and went up this way. And so he'd show me a scar, but he got shot. But he was the battle of the bulge, so that was his whole thing. So it is what it is.
Family history. Ben said only Dr. Walker and hers was rescinded in the late 1890s. but she refused to take it off, and then after passed away, it was reissued. Oh, he said, sorry, 1970, it was rescinded. The last 2 years of her life, she never took it off, and then it was restored in 1977. That's horrible that they rescinded it, though. Like,
it's amazing, though.
like,
It's just I get it, but that's an amazing thing, though, how they would give that out. I mean, there's been so many. I mean, I'm just surprised by that. I'm going to defer to Ben on this, but I just think that there'd be so many cases of women who would have deserved that.
Yeah, like,
like
Clara, Dorothea Dix. There was actually, speaking of women fighting in the Civil War, there was a woman from the area, what is now Newfoundland in Canada. She dressed up as a man and came down and fought.
There's a lot of stories about that.
Oh yeah, But it's just cool that she was like, I believe in this, and I'm going to go down and fight.
There's been a lot of onions from the from the John Brown show who did that. It's too bad that series ended. By the way, I was really digging
that. Really good. I know.
Anybody who watched Good Lord Bird, that was so good. Oh, was that good? Ethan Hawke did such a great job in that. He was so good.
He's a good actor, though, to begin with. Like, Laura said, I have my great uncle's Purple Heart. He was shot by a Japanese sniper in World War II. Pretty cool heirloom. Yeah, that's neat. You got to wonder, though, going back to the Civil War, when these guys were done, did they talk about it with their families? Did they share the stories, or was it a lot like?
Oh, for God's sake, they absolutely did. I mean, for God's sakes, there are stories. If you look at the 75th anniversary, 1938 at Gettysburg, some of these stories they talked about.
Number 3.
Crack open the new diet soda. Anyway,
it's creamsicle ale, so it tastes like I'm drinking a creamsicle right now. It's so good.
Oh, that's good. Call me baby.
Nope, you're the one drinking 10% sweet.
Yeah, we'll see. Fast forward to 10 o'clock tonight. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, great live today.
Oh, you sending to me?
Oh yeah, me. Okay, sure. Okay. Anyway, but I feel what we're saying. But no, these guys, like the reunions, they talked about when they came back to the reunions, about how they embellished their stories and how they talked about stuff. And there was one really good story. God, I keep mentioning this, but I can't remember the book. I have a book that talks about the 1938 reunion at Gettysburg, and they talk about how these veterans would come back, and they had like these people with them, like sponsors. They would tell their stories. There's one guy, this Confederate dude, who's crossing the field at Pickett's Charge.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Legos or not, to be honest. He didn't talk about it. But he stopped at one point. The guy goes, why are you stopping? He goes, because this is where I was shot in the head, right here.
Wow.
And so he had a big scar. He goes, this is where this is the location where I got shot, right here. And so it's just something to read. I'll take it. I mean, borrow that book, Mary.
Thanks.
It's like
going to be borrowing a lot of your books.
Oh yeah, it's too cheap to pay for them, but that's okay. But it's like a 40-page little book. Oh my God!
Road to Richmond. I was going to buy the what's his face's book.
Abner Smalls.
Yeah. I was going to buy it, and then you were like, "Don't. I'll just send you my copy."
Well, it's expensive. It's an expensive book.
I know.
It's like $40 on Amazon plus with your shipping.
I think Jim bought it the other day. I wonder if he got it used from somewhere.
Yeah, Jim, let us know how much you pay for your book if you don't mind. I think it's like $30-40, but like shipping up to you up there in the Santa's workshop, it's going to cost you a fortune.
I know. Yeah. I hate COVID.
Well, I mean, even without the COVID though. I mean, before COVID, I had a place in Port Huron, Michigan, where I would get stuff shipped to, and then I didn't have to pay the shipping on it. Yeah,
right?
That's true. Like I sent you something not too long ago, and it cost a fortune.
I know, and I told you not to. And apparently you're sending me more stuff, and I'm like,
yes,
just send it via regular post this time.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know. We'll see how much that is.
Mike said, my grandfather was in World War I. Told me about hearing an incoming shell and diving into a latrine. He told my brother about friends and seeing a dog fight, and the German shot down near them. They saluted him as he was crashing, and he saluted back. How?
That is cool, actually.
Yeah. Ben said there was a bunch from the 27th Maine 300, I think, that got the Medal of Honor for staying beyond their enlistment to defend Washington during Lee's second invasion, and all those were rescinded. Yeah. Hey, Leanne. Ryan said, speaking of Good Lord Bird, I have started watching an old series, and to be honest, it's weirding me out. I'm watching the old North and South. Johnny Cash is John Brown. Oh, I watched that years ago, Ryan. How is that? Doesn't that have Patrick's what's his face as like? Oh,
It must have been weird, like at Harper's Fair when you stopped and you started singing "Ring of Fire." It must have been weird, huh?
Or that Nine Inch Nails cover song that he did.
Oh yeah, exactly. But that was really good. I mean, hopefully people get to watch that. But we, in all seriousness, that
yeah, Good Lord Bird was really
that was so
good.
well written. The characters was so good. It had, for the most part, it was smart because like the beginning they say like we think most of this happened. I forgot the caption they put. It was mostly true, but there was a couple.
This is true. Yeah.
They took their liberties like most TV shows do, but it was very well done. I thought it was very
Hey,
good.
Pike's here.
Andrea Lee Pike. It's about time you jump. Andrea's one of our favorite people in the entire world, and she
is.
She's great at busting balls, and she's got one of the best sense of humors of anybody I've ever heard.
And a lot of what she posts on Facebook, I'm like, I so relate to this. her and I are like, I swear she's like my soul sister or something. She's like Jay Price,
Andrea, are you guys still talking? Yes, we went. It was like 2 hours. We went 3 hours last week, Pike.
We've been waiting for you, Pike.
Yeah.
Where you been?
So Jim paid like $35.
Schitt's Creek at like 3 a.m.
Oh shit! So Jim paid like $35 for it. So that's about what I saw. But yeah, it's expensive for a book. But Jim, I hope you like that book though, because in all seriousness, that Abner Small book is the best firsthand diary of any book you'll read in the Civil War. It is so detailed. It is so talks about the basic minutia, without talking about battles. You'll know what I mean when you read it. It's a really, really good book. So
Andrea was wrangling children.
Andrea's like she's a good mom. She's got a bunch of kids. She always posts pictures.
Yeah, I love seeing the kids. Oh, Andrew, I relate. I got to wrangle weeks all the time. So.
What the hell? Jesus God.
From 600 miles away, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
So Ryan said that for North and South, Riker from Star Trek: The Next Generation's in it too.
Mm-hmm. He is.
Wow.
Patrick Swayze, right?
Yep. Yeah, he is Ori Main, apparently.
See, I've always confused the North and the South versus the Blue and the Gray. There's two separate TV shows. There's two separate ones.
There was also a made-for-TV movie with Jason Robards as Lincoln that has the Gettysburg Address in it.
Yeah.
My parents recorded that for me, and that was like Mary Needs to Shut the Fuck Up for a While movie, and they would put that on, and I would just sit in front of the TV and watch it.
I've thought about that. I've thought that phrase many times, actually. Yeah. But what's interesting about those ones are really, really good. The Blue and the Gray they're both really, really good. They definitely. But we mentioned earlier the Andersonville one was so good.
It was. That was real. I would watch that again. I love that. That was
and Andrew, better than St. Clair. What are you talking about there, Andrew?
Oh, Benson, if you remember that comedy from the 80s, is Frederick Douglass. The casting is both bizarre and amazing. Well, it's one of those 80s made-for-TV movies where they would pull in all these like superstars and give them even just cameo roles, right?
Like a Love Boat?
What?
Like a Love Boat?
Sure.
No, the TV show.
I know
TV show from the 80s.
I was all over the soap operas in the 80s, you know that.
You were over Dallas, apparently.
Oh, I was. That was my Friday night, was Dallas.
Because that podcast was a noun, a verb, in Dallas for you the entire time.
You brought up the shower scene in Braxton Bragg. Which was great. Was this just a dream that he was in command? No. He's still in command.
You're like, wow, Braxton Bragg in the shower. Wow, okay. Yeah, at least I actually went on G.K. Warren for a few minutes.
Ew.
Wait, ew. Okay, whatever.
I do not have a thing for G.K. Warren. Allie said,
only like generals from Maine. I know, we've talked about this.
Yeah. Allie said, I've watched a few scenes from a show that centered on Lincoln on YouTube. It was older. I don't know the name of it, but it was kind of hilarious because the acting was, how we say, over the top. That's probably the one I'm thinking of with Jason Robards as Lincoln. It was really
North and the South, though. The North is really, really good, but they do stupid things. Like there's a family member from Virginia who works at a print shop. Ironically, it's in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania,
but they don't show anything about the Battle of Gettysburg, so it's kind of random. They just wanted to get Gettysburg in there. The Horse Soldier is a good one, the John Wayne one.
That is one of my mother's favorite movies.
That's a good Civil War. That's a good one. Yeah. But those TV ones are pretty good. But Andersonville was so good though. Mm-hmm. That was really good. But the one about the John Brown one, the Good Lord Bird, that the Grant one, the best things I've seen on TV in a long time.
Yeah. And you're now into, I've got you watching, it has a very loose tie to the Civil War, but Firefly.
Yeah, we've been watching Firefly lately.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. It's the bad guy who hasn't come in yet, but he'll come in. His name is Jubal Early, which I think is hilarious.
There's other very subtle Civil War references to it.
But the guy, the main guy, is
Mal. I don't like Mal.
He's a dick.
Like I said, my favorite characters are Washington, Kaylee, and I love Zoe.
Oh. Yeah, Jim is Blue and the Gray. I've always confused Blue and the Gray, North and the South. I've always confused those two movies. So he's right. It's Blue and the Gray. But that's fun though. That's a good one to watch if you haven't seen that one yet.
Jim heaving bosoms and all, but I still love it. Ryan said, Liz Taylor's in it briefly. A very young Forrest Whitaker, drunk fantasy 80s casting. If Liz Taylor's in it, my mother would be. She'd be watching it.
And there's nothing wrong with heaving bosoms, by the way.
Right. Noted.
I mean, just saying.
Andrea, I read the North and South trilogy, and she shrugs. Sort of preachy, like the Norse version of The Lost Cause. Tried watching the movie, but it was awful. I love me some Swayze. Hello, Pottery Wheel scene, but he was awful. Yeah, some of the acting in those shows was not good. Leonard, Firefly is the best TV show ever, right?
I mean, it's good.
We've never seen it before, and
I know.
We needed something to watch.
So Mary and I, the last couple of nights, been watching Firefly. We've been watching it, okay? And we got through 2 episodes so far. And I had not seen it before. And so I like it, though. It's good that one of the women there was the bad girl from V.
Inara.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. But I like it. I think it's pretty neat. But best ever. We'll see. He might be right, but we're only 2 episodes in. So
it's really good. There's some amazing. So next to the Schitt's Creek GIFs, Firefly GIFs are amazing.
Okay. I'm supposed to be seeing those here soon.
Yeah, there's one line where Mel says, like, I aim to misbehave. Andrea, Schitt's Creek is the best show ever. Yeah, it and Firefly.
Schitt's Creek is awesome.
Like, they're tied for first. Andrea, if you haven't seen Firefly, I think you probably would enjoy it. It's really good. It's only 1 season long, though, because they canceled it. So once you finish the show, you have to watch the movie Serenity because it puts a bow on it, as they say.
No, but Schitt's Creek is great though.
Oh yeah,
it just is. Somebody tweeted that Schitt's Creek was terrible recently.
I know.
It was a big and I mean I read that. I'm like, I think it's hilarious.
It is. It's a great show.
You got me into that one. I got to give you the assist on that one, Fincher. You hooked me up with that one. You did.
I hooked you up with Firefly too.
No, you have, for God's sake. But you know what? That's fine.
Well, you got Hill House and Bly Manor
and maybe you'll get Westworld on your Canadian cable.
You know what? I might just break down and buy the subscription for the month to
It's
HBO,
good though.
And then we can watch it. Allie B, if you want some good book enabling, The Real Horse Soldiers by Timothy B. Smith. Oh, I remember when you bought that, Allie. I just finished it up and it was great. Wish the movie followed along with the actual true story more. Well, that would be, yeah. Thanks, Allie. More books. Ryan said, I have to admit my entry to the Civil War is They Died with Their Boots On and the Santa Fe Trail, the most inaccurate war movies ever made, but that's my Errol Flynn. Yeah, again, my mother, this is what she spends her time doing, is watching these old classic movies. But even though some of those movies are really inaccurate, if it sparks the interest and you go read more, then that's what matters, right?
I think whatever gets you into it, I think every one of us, anybody who's on this right now is into this for different reasons, but whatever gets you into the Civil War, it doesn't matter as long as you're into it, you know. And I think we can all agree once you're in it, and that's the end of it. It's a done deal, you know. But everybody, you know what's so funny about like all these people who are on right now, right, that we've talked about, everybody who I'm reading these comments, everybody knows a ton about the Civil War, but every one of them has a sense of humor.
Exactly. And that's
And
what
if
makes this fun.
but I mean, but you know, it shows intelligence. This is why I said earlier that the smartest people I know are the Civil War people, because it's, you know, their stuff, you know, the history, but you're funny. And being able to be funny is the hardest thing intelligent wise to do, you know. And so all these people around here are really, really, really good at that.
Yeah.
Even you, Andrea, even you, Pike.
She's hilarious.
You know?
Andrea mentions Lincoln's Melancholy is fantastic, really explores his depression. I would second that. As somebody who, I mean, I'm open about it. I have been on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You know, I've had depression for most of my life. Lincoln's Melancholy helped me understand it better, and gain some pretty cool coping mechanisms for it. But it also helped me learn about Lincoln a lot more too. And it is probably one of the best biographies I've ever read about Abraham Lincoln. It was really, really good. It was amazing. So I highly recommend Lincoln's Melancholy. And I've heard of other people. I know somebody that they specifically got into Abraham Lincoln because they suffered from depression, and they found that book and they read it. And from there, and this person, like, she knows so much about Abraham Lincoln just from reading that one book. She had no interest prior. She read that book, and it, you know, and it she said it's become a coping mechanism for her. Andrea, I'm tripolar.
Yeah, that's what got me too. Andrea has the best tagline on Twitter, by the way.
I love her tagline on Twitter. It's awesome.
If you follow her on Twitter, every time she posts, it makes me laugh every single goddamn time. So you're gonna have to go on there now. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but follow Andrea Lee Pike on Twitter. Read her thing. You gotta follow her anyway. She's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, she's good. Allie B, we got jokes here. Yeah, and that's how I've always been with it. Like, my approach to history has always been to be funny with it. Like, I remember, and my parents are more into World War II history. Like, my mom is actually, you know, she's not like, she's into World War II, but especially studying like the German side of it, because she's half German. So she knows quite a bit about that side of it. But they were late to a family wedding, and I called her, and I said to her, I'm like, am I speaking to Lew Wallace? And she got the reference.
Wow.
Just because she started laughing, and she's like, yeah, I'm Lew Wallace at Shiloh right now.
God, deep in the woods of Lew Wallace, you know.
Andrea, actually bipolar, but whatever. Either way, I'm mentally hilarious. You're just hilarious, Andrea.
No, Andrea's funny. She's right.
Yeah.
Like, it was so funny because Andrea has the distinction of getting me banned off of a Facebook page for liking one of her posts. That was pretty funny. Just like you got me blocked on Twitter for something I liked that you wrote, and you didn't get blocked, but I got blocked.
Life goals.
So you and Pike have something in common. But my ass freaking banned from stuff. I didn't freaking do anything. Typical.
She's like my sister, so.
It was pretty funny. No,
Ryan said, you're lucky to have Lincoln's example. We only have Churchill and his black dog depression. His solution, high functioning alcoholism, isn't for everyone, or indeed anyone else.
Churchill was a guy, you know, he obviously caught his shit. He was blackballed, but he rose in World War II, but he caught all his crap that he got from the you know, the previous stuff he did. Get those dudes killed, and
Andrea, you're the common denominator weeks, right?
The thing, okay, and you know, Andrea, you talk all you want, but you know the Facebook page that I'm talking about. I'm not going to say which one it was, but you and I had been going at them for a little bit, and I forget what it was, but you said something, I think specifically to get banned, and I liked it, and we both got banned. Oh, what a bunch of dicks they were. Oh my God.
Leonard, you mean Weeks wasn't allowed to participate? That was great when you said last week, we're having a round table where you can't participate. I love that Leonard ran with that. And that was like, that happened after all the shit you've been giving me for my pronunciations and for a few other things.
Well, Mary, the bar is very low here at the Civil War Breakfast Club live, obviously. What that look for?
Fucker.
But yeah, I meant to say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Just granted.
Ben, group, we have a new goal. Get Weeks blocked. LAB. We can make it happen.
It doesn't take much. I'm one of those guys with steps in it all the time. And I forget what the hell what even was with you, Mary, but you commented on something on Twitter.
Yeah, and someone replied to me and said, please delete this post. So I responded with a Schitt's Creek gif of David just saying thank you, and then I just said please unfollow.
Yeah, and I like that.
There's some conservative woman who told me to delete a post. Yeah, and I was basically like, how do I tell this woman to fuck off?
Beware the snowflakes, Mary. Don't forget that.
Oh, I know, right? Andrew said, I've had it with them and finally went off on their lost cause BS. There's a lot of civil.
And then I liked her, and I liked what she wrote, and I got banned.
Ryan said, Civil War related, Churchill wrote an alternate history exploring a Southern history before everyone else on the planet started doing them. Leonard said, I forgave him, sorry, couldn't resist. No, Leonard, you go. You go at Weeks. It's okay. That could be your way of participating.
Oh, I am 100% tweeting your videos later on tonight with your singing now. Oh, that's happening now.
I thought you were already going to do the Peacock one where I get by the Peacock.
You know what? Just watch Twitter about 10 o'clock tonight. We'll see.
I'm not drinking 10% beers right now. You are.
I don't even need to. That's a problem. I think there was a Dancing Queen one recently too.
Yeah, there was. I'm not gonna deny it.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Whatever.
I remember my first beer, Mary, too, so it's okay.
What?
I said I remember my first beer, so it's fine.
I don't remember my first beer.
No.
I was quite young. Ben, I think we should retweet these videos. Whatever. I have no shame.
Oh, her videos are fine. They're fine. It's I tease her, but I love getting them. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Hallie B, release the tapes, Weeks.
It's like the Zapruder film. The drunken Mary singing videos. Oh my God.
Andrea, she's got a question. Did Lincoln ever send a letter of condolence to Sherman when Sherman lost his son? It was around the same time Willie died.
Oh, it's a good question.
I'm not sure if he did or not. But
he probably did, though. I bet you he did.
I'm thinking he probably did, but that loss to Sherman, like Andrea, I don't know how much you've looked into it, but if you can, you should try and find some of the letters that he writes to his wife Ellen at that time, because they're heartbreaking. Just how he felt, and that was during the Vicksburg campaign. So when he's heading down to Chattanooga, he's suffering from that loss. And I think Chattanooga was what helped to get him through that, because it gave him a purpose again. But he said Willie would never be replaced. And then
Longstreet talks a lot about his losses. He had all his kids. He lost scarlet fever.
Yeah.
Same deal.
But this one for Sherman, it hit him, I think in some ways, it hit him harder than the loss of Willie hit Lincoln. Because Sherman was near, like, what are you smiling about?
These comments are awesome.
I know they are. I know. We have awesome.
So Ben mentions, I don't want to interrupt, but Ben mentions about karaoke once COVID is over. We've talked about the Surratt.
That'll happen.
Someday we're going to go to Washington D.C. and we're going to go to Mary Surratt's boarding house, where I've done karaoke and Mary's seen the fucking videos, which is brutal. I don't know why the hell I sent those to you. It's beyond me. But we'll do that. What? I hate you. But we had a lot of fun with that, and so we'll do that. We'll definitely do that. That Surratt boarding house is awesome anyway on 8th Street in DC, but they got that karaoke place there upstairs. It was just a lot of fun. So we'll definitely do that.
Andrew said the boys were about the same age. Yeah, they were. They will, like, Sherman's son and Lincoln's son were around the same age, and I think they died of something very, very similar. Just from reading about what those boys both went through. But then Sherman's wife, Ellen, gave birth to, I think his name was Charles, another boy. And he ended up dying when he was around 9 months old. And the
It's a
letter
different world back then.
it
really
was,
is.
but just like to see how like to read how heartbroken Sherman was over the loss of this one boy was, it really shows again, something like that shows the human side to it, that what so as he's, finishing up with Vicksburg and then going down to Chattanooga, this is what he's suffering from on the side, is this grief. And he's having to go through, like, he can't mourn. He's got to keep going through, right? With it. And he not only does he write to Ellen, but I think he writes letters to Grant. He writes letters to some other people just saying how terrible of a loss that he's suffered in his son. And it really shows the human side to him.
Well, think about like a guy like a John Brown we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
where his son was killed during his raid, right? What that's like, how he must have been. This is a different world. I mean, it's just a different world that we're living in right now. Where now when someone outlives their child, it's a, it obviously it's a very, 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 very sad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was more common, right? It just was.
Like, I mean, there's a really good photo of Sherman and Willie, and it's just when you see the photo and know what he went through, it's heartbreaking. I'm not a parent, and it makes me really just like, I really feel for him when I read those letters. Andrea said his letters were tragic. As a mom, they pulverized my heart. And then the baby Sherman never got to meet was I think his name was Charles. He was the one that was born after Willie died. And then Leonard, leave the video links wrapped around 3 cigars at an abandoned camp.
That was the comment that got me laughing, Mary. That was the one. The one.
Ryan, I'm looking forward to the next podcast where it's edited to show Weeks saying the South was the best region ever and the South totally won the Civil War, and Grant's memoirs are totally fake news.
Whoa! Wow!
Challenge accepted.
Where did that come from? I'm a very staunch pro-Union, anti-Confederate guy, my friend.
No.
Wow.
So much. Allie B said, I remember reading something in the OR Sherman mentioning to Grant Willie wasn't feeling well, and I think it was dated a few days before his son passed away. I was like, this is depressing. Yeah. And I think his son actually rallied back a little, much like Willie Lincoln had, felt better, and then got worse again. And I think it was something like typhoid that took them both. And Mike said, I wonder if Lincoln felt at all bad when Jefferson Davis's young son died while playing on the porch of the Confederate White House. Mike, I'm pretty sure Lincoln did. Lincoln had a lot of empathy, even for the South. I think there was.
Lincoln wanted the Union back together again. He could have very easily been very hard on the South, and even after Lincoln was killed, Johnson was there was no mass hangings. There was, in every other situation of a rebellion, it's bloodshed.
Yeah, and
it just wasn't here, and that's a very unique American thing with this. Was that, and so I think Abraham Lincoln looked at the South as kind of the miscreated child who needs to be brought back into the line again.
Yeah, well,
but
like
he
in
never
the
stopped.
Movie,
But he never stopped. Right, he never stopped loving the child. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's like, this is a situation where a family member has gone off the rail. We're going to bring them back. I'm not going to stop loving the family member.
Yeah,
it clearly showed, because something. And this is where Shelby Foote was right again. The Union fought this war, and even McClellan was right to a point. They didn't want to embarrass the South. They wanted to win and end it, but without destroying them. It just didn't turn out that way because the South had a lot more resolve than they ever expected.
Yep.
But they wanted to win and beat them soft with a soft glove and put an end to it. But the Southerners had a lot more fight in them. But that was the whole point of it. And when the war was finally over, Lincoln was like, let these guys go home, let the guys go back to their families. They're going to sign their documents stating they're back in the Union again, and be end of it. Robert E. Lee, for the most part, should have been hanged as a criminal.
Absolutely.
Jefferson Davis, all these guys, Alexander Stevens, Judah Benjamin, but they weren't. Worse was, but
Andrew. No, I said Forrest.
Oh, there's a Wirtz. But
No.
all these guys, they should. But this country, this is a very unique American experience where they weren't, because you look at across the world. Whenever there's a revolution that fails, they're all killed.
Yep.
Here it was, we apologize. We're going to make the best of it.
Yep.
Let's go back to being what we were. And that's a very unique American experience to this. And that's something that people need to really, really understand.
Yeah. And that's something that comes out in the Lincoln movie, you know, when he's sitting on the porch with Grant and he said, I would be okay if I just turned my head and, you know, Jeff Davis hightails it to England or whatever. I'm not going to pursue him. You know, he didn't want to see anybody else killed over that because so many lives had been lost. But, you know, and something too that happened was that meeting on the, you know, the peacemakers, where it was Grant, Sherman, and Admiral Porter. I think it was, David Dixon Porter. And that they meet, and Lincoln openly talks about how he wants Reconstruction to go, how he wants the terms of surrender. So then you have the Appomattox surrender between Grant and Lee, but then you have the one between Sherman and Johnston, which totally Stanton's like, nope, we're not fucking doing that shit. And Sherman had based that off of what he remembered Lincoln saying. And Stanton went all over he went to the press about it and just did this because Stanton had a personal vendetta against Sherman. And he's like, nope, we're not doing these terms of surrender. So then Sherman's got to go back to Johnson and say like, so apparently we're still at war. Imagine that embarrassment. Like that would suck.
I mean, I think it's easy to fall back on certain perceptions and realities, but I love the fact that, you know what I love about Mary? I love the fact that it's an ongoing education.
Oh, it is,
right?
completely. Yeah.
This is not studying mathematics or science. This is a never-ending, ongoing education, right? Where it's almost like a situation where nobody's wrong, nobody's right.
Yeah.
It's an endless learning thing.
Yeah, and that's what I love about doing these lives is everybody like that comes on here, you know, like you said, not only do they have a sense of humor, they know so much, and I've learned so much from everybody. Actually, speaking of which, Andrea's got a question. Didn't Hancock lose all his kids too?
Yeah, I think he did. I think he lost. I don't know all of them. I think most of them he did, and that was part of the whole Scarlet Fever. And that was a lot of shit. I mean, it's sad. And you're reading Black Iron Mercy, that fictional book. I'm not sure how far along the way you are with that,
but 50 pages. It's still tough.
There's a lot of talk about that book about family members dying of disease. Yeah. It's very sad. And I don't want to spoil it because it's only 50 pages in, but I think. I think that it's a different world we live in now, and we live in this COVID thing right now where unfortunately a lot of people, like one of my relatives died of COVID, admittedly, and so but it's not like it was, and so you can sort of draw a parallel to then versus now, right? And but a guy like Hancock, all these guys were developed by their experiences. Hancock, Longstreet, Lee, Sherman, they all had people die. I mean, you had, granted, these guys had, 10 kids because they couldn't get their hands off each other, apparently. But they lost them.
What else is there to do in the 1860s?
Exactly. Tell me about it. I mean, God, Netflix. I don't know. But the other reality is it's a very sad state. We're blessed to live when we do. Mm-hmm. And 200 years from now, people are going to look back on us and they're going to say, how do they live like that through this COVID thing, which should have been done in 10 minutes? But we are who we are. But even back then, these guys all carried so much baggage with them. Yeah. With these battles. And forget, and this is the generals we talk about, Hancock and Longstreet.
Hardy lost his son in a battle too.
But how many of these foot soldiers guys were leaving families, who died, and it's that's the thing. I always think I think about these certain things. I think about like certain battles. I think about the Peach Orchard in Gettysburg. Where how many fathers and sons left their homes and died, and their families never knew what happened to them. and they all died in the midst of a peach orchard.
Yep.
Right? And they never knew what happened to them. And so there are certain things that just gets you with this stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. Ryan's got a really good comment here. He said, and it's so common in the Civil War. You're frozen again, Weeks. If he loses the internet and I'm carrying us, that's going to be awesome. And now he's dancing. Okay, the 10% have kicked in.
If I'm frozen, no one can see me.
We can see you now. Oh, it is being recorded.
Oh, shit. There goes my Senate run.
Ryan said, and it's so common in the Civil War. Kearney loses his son Archie in February 1862. How do these guys just turn up to fight 5 minutes later when you see from their letters how broken they were? Yeah, and that's what you'd learn from Sherman's letters at that time as he's making his way to Chattanooga, how he's still just broken from his son passing away. You think of Abraham Lincoln, who's had to carry on the presidency. He's unable to mourn fully for his son, which he mentions in the movie Lincoln. And just, you know, someone like Hardee, who's fighting and his son gets killed and he sees his son carried away on a stretcher, you know?
Well, you think about, you know, there's so many. I mean, all these guys. I mean, it's just a sad reality of this stuff, and it's you know what, we can't relate nowadays. We can study this as quasi historians and all this other shit, but we can't understand what it'd be like to lose a kid, especially right in front of you, and hold them in your arms as they die, and just experience that. But thank God we can't.
I know.
And that's why it's important to study this stuff, because there's so much. It's you know, it's. I think when you study these people as people, you really get a feeling for. Imagine what it'd be like today. Yeah. You know, I mean, I was watching a thing this morning where they talked about the United States government anticipated by the end of February there's going to be 700,000 COVID deaths. Okay, which is going to exceed the amount of the American Civil War. Now, the Civil War was 4 years. This is going to be a year, right? So this is going to be what people talk about hundreds of years down the road. It's going to be COVID, the way people talk about the Black Plague in Europe. In the
That's exactly how they're going to talk about it.
And so they're going to wonder how we got through it. You know how we got through it? That's how we got through it, right?
My beer consumption's admittedly gone up. That's for damn sure.
No, but seriously though, but people are going to talk about the people, and I hope they study the individual people and the stories behind
I hope they study the individual stories, because I think, and I know you and I have talked about this before, there's going to be some positive stories to come out of this pandemic, as tragic as it's been. Oh God.
Letter was at the Trump dance, Darren. Fuck no, it wasn't a fucking Trump dance. Fuck
Looked
you,
like
Letter.
it. Andrea.
That was actually pretty close, though. That was actually pretty close.
Andrea said that they.
You're awesome. You are awesome.
Leonard brings it every single time.
He does. That got me. That got me.
That meme this morning was. Andrea says they compartmentalize everything. They didn't have a choice. Yeah, that absolutely. You know, as Sherman's heading down to Chattanooga, he's got no choice but to keep going. Hardee has no choice but to keep going. Same with Longstreet, same with Hancock. Let's go back up here because there's some good comments here. Jim said there are at least 2 condolence letters from Lincoln that I can remember. One is the Bixby letter, which John Hay probably wrote and Lincoln signed. The other, I can't remember off the top of my head, was to a 16-year-old girl whose father, a friend of Lincoln, had died. Jim, that one you're referring to is the Fanny McCullough letter, and it is an absolutely beautiful letter. Leonard, that was the point in Secession on Trial that I read. Brilliant analysis of why the trial never happened and Davis wasn't executed. Mike said, does it seem to you the Gettysburg Address might have been written to apply in any way to all soldiers who fought at Gettysburg, North and even South? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it might. Knowing Lincoln, because he never mentions North or South in that address. It's very neutral.
The Gettysburg Address?
Yeah.
Well, the Gettysburg Address is brilliant for a million reasons. I mean, he taught, you know, we were going to do a podcast on this, but I got shot down. But we were talking.
You fucker.
I did though. I did.
Didn't I gently suggested? I said I think a lot of
Gently suggested. Okay. All right. So anyway, what I I'm gonna fucking ask it now. But you know what though? Be punished. But you know what? It was like.
You think?
But anyway, the Gettysburg Address was basically Lincoln was a great evocator, right? So we talk about Lincoln and we talk about how brilliant that speech was. He starts with 7 years ago, 87 years. He's talking about what people didn't realize when you do 7 years is 87 years. Okay, when people do the math, unlike Mary, who are good at math, they talk about that. That was going back to the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution, which is rare at the time, because the Declaration of Independence said all men are created equal. All right, that comes from the King James Bible, and that was a big evocation of what he talked about. He finishes with, "Of the people, by the people, for the people," which is an evocation of an 1830 speech by Daniel Webster called the Second Reply to Hayne. He did at Congress, which is basically saying this government is of the people, by the people, for the people. And that's what he's evoking, going back to that phase. And then in the middle of it, he talks about that this country is a second birth of freedom. And what he's talking about is a very important article that was written in the New York Times at the time by a guy named Leonard Wilkinson. Okay. Now, Wilkinson's son, Bayard, fought at Gettysburg. He was a part of the artillery on the first day. He was killed with the Adams County almshouses. So basically with the poorhouse, which is basically where the 11th Corps fought, not far from where the not far from Oak Hill, right in that area. Yep. Where that stuff is. Mm-hmm. And so Wilkinson, he was a writer, he was an embedded writer with the New York Times. And he went after the battle to go find his son Bayard. And he went north of the town and he found his son's body not far from the first day's battlefield. And Bayard Wilkinson was also the nephew of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So it had a little bit of a history behind them. But he wrote that article where he basically wrote, he said, how does one, he writes an article where he goes, how does one explicitly write the details of a battle when you're standing over the body of your dead son who fought in a place he shouldn't been, where a battle should not have been placed? That's how he started the article. And then he talks about how, this, as I sit here basically paraphrasing in front of my dead son, it's important how this war must be won, because this is a fight of a second birth of freedom to help go ahead and help win this war. And I think when Lincoln talks about the second birth of freedom, or the new birth of freedom in the Gettysburg Address, what he's doing is he's evoking that article, which is an article that was a huge article that hit after the battle. And so he's sitting there reading that, and he's talking about the new birth of freedom. He's evoking the story of Bayard Wilkinson at Gettysburg. And so as people hear this story, he doesn't talk about Confederate or North or slavery or any generals' names. He's evoking the entire battle. And so, and the whole point of the battle. And so when he talks about Daniel Webster, when he talks about the King James Bible, when he talks about Wilkinson, he's kind of talking about all the feelings that people had about the war. And that's what made the Gettysburg Address brilliant, it gave them all the feels of why the battle was going on. And that's kind of what the whole battle was about. I mean, the whole declaration, the Gettysburg Address, rather.
Yep. Completely agree.
Ran over.
272 words, right? And
yeah, exactly.
And Allie, going back, we got a lot of comments. Oh, Allie's replying to Leonard. Didn't have something to do with proving that secession was legal. That's another book to add to my list. Leonard's book Enabling Now. Jim said, I think the second inaugural address is Lincoln's condolence letter to the country. Yeah. And Andrew said, I've thought regarding what Mike said about the Gettysburg Address, I've thought about this, but I think by not mentioning the Confederacy, he slighted them. And I think that was on purpose. That's a good point too.
Well, he finishes the address, and he basically, he gets done, and Edward Everett, good masshole like me, gives a great speech and talks about all kinds of stuff for 2 hours. Lincoln goes up there and does it 272 words, and he finishes it. He gets the whole golf clap, right?
Yeah.
And he sits down. He looks at Walter Layman, one of his aides, and goes. He basically, Layman looks at him and he goes, that won't plow. Or the phrase he said. But then he talked about the speech being dishwatery, right? That's the phrases he got about it. That Gettysburg Address was panned at the beginning until people realized.
Well, that's because Nicolay had to help him with it in the morning, and he was whiskey hungover.
Oh yeah, speaking of that, we're just calling you Nicolay here pretty soon.
I'm not the one drinking the 10% beers weeks.
Oh God. Okay. When was the last time that I was late to talk to you in the morning because I was hungover? When was it?
Okay, never, admittedly.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now let's flip the coin. How many times has it been? When the hell? Where's Mary?
Whatever. I have nothing to say to that.
Leave that alone. I just met you. This is crazy.
Oh, Jesus. People are going to be expecting some kind of karaoke performance from me now.
Do you remember that day at Gettysburg last August? Remember that day?
Oh, yep. I'll bet you sometime I will have fuel. Yep, I will. Mike said, oh, really? Okay. Challenge accepted.
Okay. Yeah.
Mike said, I wonder to what extent Lincoln knew the best thing that could reunite the North and South after the war would be his own assassination. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. Maybe.
Leonard and
Ben, I don't like when mommy and daddy fight.
Andrea, it took 2 hours to undress with all the undergarments. Truth.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Jim said, Lincoln not only lost Willie, which he didn't have time to mourn as he had to continue to fight the war and comfort Mary, who was inconsolable. Yeah. Yeah, that scene from Lincoln movie was tough.
How brutal that must have been, though.
Andrew said, Fauci's going to be the one to read about. Think about all the biographies that are going to be written about him. Yeah, and he called out Canada the other day. He told us we are going down a dangerous path. And we are.
Yeah.
Like, True Daddy's up there saying, like, I will use my powers to shut the shit down. And he's got it to do it.
It's gonna be an interesting post read when this whole thing is over, talking about it.
It is.
And there's a lot of stuff. Look, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. Admittedly, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about this whole virus thing. But when the story's finally written, it'll be one of the most significant events, if not the most significant event in our lives. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it is, because I hope there's nothing worse than this.
No. I mean, I'm coming out of it with admittedly a more positive person, which is nice. I didn't think.
There are definitely positives with this, and we could talk. We talk about those, but I think for the most part is, I think the reality is this is one of those significant events in American history that people are going to look back on, like so many things, and so it's how history judges it. Mm-hmm. If the people who didn't do well are going to be judged harshly with this, needless to say. But I will say your guys, Trudeau and the rest of them, I think did for the most part a good job. Not so much here.
Well, our premier here, who's like our governor, he's not. I thought he was doing a good job, and we have different levels now. Like it's like a stoplight, red, yellow, or like whatever, green. I live in a place that's orange right now. For me, I wish he would just lock us all down for 4 weeks.
Well, a lot of it
because he locked down Toronto. What's going to stop Toronto from like coming to areas that aren't locked down? That's
so if they lock down Toronto, that means they're not going to win the Stanley Cup this year. That'd be unusual.
Oh yeah, wouldn't it though?
The 1960s. But I think it's going to be interesting. But again, you look at the, obviously we go back to the Civil War era, which is what this whole thing's about. scarlet fever, yellow fever, tuberculosis. There's a
Mhm.
whole bunch of things going on. It's just something we got to deal with. The reality.
Yeah.
But it's great about this. It gives us something to talk about. It gives us something to focus on.
It's like an outlet in all of this, right? You know, Ryan said it's not just children dying and its impact. Colette Leventhorpe gets a hard time for a relish performance at Gettysburg, but he saw his brother die on the first day. I suspect my work performance over the 3 following days after watching my brother be shot and die hard might be a touch suboptimal. I think we don't always judge soldiers' bad days in the proper context ever. Yeah, that's a good point too. There was a lot. I have read his story before.
You know, Leventhorpe.
So sad.
I think it goes. Imagine like the Taylor brothers at First Minnesota, Gettysburg, and it reminds you a lot of that stuff. But I think what we got to stop doing is focusing on the now versus the then, and thinking about how we would think now if it would happen to us back then.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but we're a much softer society now.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
We are. Yeah.
So going into the stuff back then where you fought in your regiments back then because you were part of the same town or same family. And you fought because if you chickened out, you were a coward, you could never show your face back in your hometown again. It was a different world back then. Mm-hmm. You know, you think of the second South Carolina, Gettysburg, and the Confederate people, where you basically had to do what you had to do because you couldn't show your face again. How can I go forward? How can I not go forward? My brother is going forward, right? Mm-hmm. If he's going to die, I'm going to die. How could I possibly live knowing I did not go forward if he went forward? And it talks about the whole Emmitsburg Road thing, about the whole people not going forward at the angle. But I think the reality is you study these people and you focus on what they went through.
Yeah.
And it's a good rule of thumb to think about in life right now. You know, people talk about Grant, about all the foibles he had with the drinking, all the stuff he did. But one thing you can't say about him is he could make a decision, right or wrong. He didn't dillywhack, and he had that certain Shelby Foote talks about that 3 a.m. courage you have, where they woke him up. They woke him up at 3 o'clock in the morning and said his flank had been turned. He would know exactly what to do. He was always ready. And I think people need to kind of get that same mindset. It's a little different world, but same mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Like Grant was, my attitude towards Grant is, so what if he drank? I don't think Grant was an alcoholic. I think he was just a guy that when he drank, he couldn't hold his fucking liquor.
I think, I think that was the case, but I think he was an alcoholic to the point that when he did drink, he went binge. Like that whole thing, you talk about
the 3-day binge with the horse.
Well, June 5th, 1863 at Vicksburg, where he went on a Jim Morrison, Nikki Sixx like blackout phase, right? Where he was basically, Vicksburg, he goes on the boat and he goes out with Sartatia, that part of Vicksburg, that one town, where he wakes up, he goes, that's where we're going. He gets completely blacked out drunk. John Rawlins says, we need to get out of here because there's all Confederates here. They bring him back. He wakes up the next morning, thinks he's still there. Gets on that horse, okay, what he calls Kangaroo. Who the hell knows why? He jumps on the horse, kicks it, takes off, runs off because he's fucking hammered. The Union's chasing after him. They finally found him. He jumped off the horse. He's passed out in the field. They put him back on, bring him back to the boat again. And then Rawlins is like, that's it, man. We're done. And Charles Dana, who was put in place to report on his drinking, becomes his friend, is like, I can't tell him. You can't. So although he did drink, he got blackout drunk, I think he would qualify as probably an alcoholic as far as
functioning. Yeah.
He was, but he did drink, but when he did, he got blacked out drunk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a friend like that who stopped drinking because of that.
I got a friend like that. I got a friend like that too, actually. But come on, I'm just kidding. But you look at that writer Calawander, who was a writer who basically was someone who was embedded with the Union Army of Vicksburg. And he's like, even I cannot write about how drunk this guy is because it's bad. So he became friends with Grant because he would not report these stories about how drunk he got.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up hiding stories about him, about these blackouts, how he would take he had that story where he had a case of wine put outside, a case of wine, okay? Or as we call it in Goderich, Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
But you have
I
a
was just
case
gonna
of
say, yeah,
wine.
that's Tuesday morning in
And
Goderich.
he had it placed outside of his tent because he wanted it to celebrate when Vicksburg fell. Well, Kellwander and Rawlins and Dana got rid of it because he was going to drink it all. And they got rid of it. He got pissed at it. And so, right? I mean, it's just one of those things.
Oh, yeah, and there was a lot of drinking that went on, though. Like, you look at someone like Hooker that gets a pass for it, Grant doesn't. But Hooker had stopped drinking before Chancellorsville, as you had mentioned in one of our episodes, right? Which I don't think a lot of people would know.
No. I mean, I think you can look at we did the alcohol episode in the podcast about the shit they were drinking. This wasn't Johnny Walker Blue here. I mean, this was stuff they were making. It was basically piss and tobacco and water.
I've had Johnny Walker Blue before. Have you?
Oh, of course I have. You're talking to here.
Yep. Friend of my dad's,
Okay.
of my dad's, who has since passed away. Every time I was over at his house, he's like, you know where it is, go get it.
So Johnny Walker Blue is kept aged in charcoal barrels for 30 years.
Yep, and it's $250 a bottle here.
Yeah, you get a little cheaper here. I've had it before. I think I had it in Kentucky with Bill last winter with this. I spent $300 on 2 shots and 2 cigars in Kentucky last winter.
That's worth it, though.
Oh, it was awesome though.
It's worth every penny to do that. Mike says, my Civil War ancestors, John Jenkins' father, saw all 5 of his children die before him, including John, who was the only one who lived long enough to marry and have kids first. Thank God. Mike also says, Gary Will's Lincoln at Gettysburg is a great analysis of the Gettysburg Address. Andrea says, and the humility in the line, no one will remember what is said here today. Fast forward today, and it's one of the most famous speeches ever given. Yep. One of the shortest and most famous. Ellie B. Fauci also said Santa is COVID immune, so now we must capture him to know his secrets.
I read that this morning. I read that he mentioned that Santa for the kids that he was immune from going to the houses. So that's good.
Happy. Ben said he's found the best Saturday morning routine outside of being in Wool. Well, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, you know what? I love this. I mean, we talk about. I mean, like you and I talk all the fucking time, right?
Yeah.
But we always talk about how Saturday morning is something we look forward to.
Like
Friday
Christmas.
night, it's like it is. Like Friday night is like podcast eve.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the podcast drop. And so Mary does the editing, and she'll send me a snippet of the stuff here and there, so I can listen to it. It's a lot of fun. And so we listen to it together on Saturday morning at around 7:30.
Yep,
right?
7:30, 7:45.
Right?
Yep.
And so then we listen to it. Then we dick around for an hour. And then we do this live. But it's fun. It's fun. It just makes for a great friggin' morning. And then and then we drink too much during this. And then Mary does her thing in the afternoon. And then Saturday nights are into a shit show, and it's a lot of fun. But
Sunday morning in Goderich, as Leonard posted a meme a few weeks ago.
Sunday mornings, where'd Mary go?
Oh,
where did she disappear to?
Andrea said, speaking of Rawlins, why the fuck didn't Grant go to him on his deathbed? Right?
I mean, that's a question for Grant, obviously. Unfortunately, he ain't going to answer. Rawlins was a huge friend of Grant. Grant may not have thought that, but he was a huge friend of Grant during especially Vicksburg, as was Charles Dana, as was Kellwander, as were these guys. They all protected him. But Rawlins was a guy who I think Grant was a little afraid of.
He was,
to be honest. I think he was intimidated. I think he was that guy where you watch yourself around because you were afraid of what was going to happen. If you acted the way you did. Like, I think he felt ashamed around John Rawlins.
He did. And John Rawlins gave a really amazing speech just before the Civil War. The character of John Rawlins in Jeff Shar's Smoke at Dawn is hilarious because Grant just sees him as being really kind of annoying and always right there. Rawlins is the reason that Grant and Sherman have a falling out in their friendship too. Yeah. And after that falling out, things were never the same between Sherman and Grant, which is sad because Sherman was, as rough as he seems on the exterior, he was a man who was easily hurt, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, he was a very emotional guy, but Grant did something to him that just, you know, it was this one thing where it gave Sherman more power as commander of the armies. And it was something that he and Grant had talked about that they always wanted to have during the Civil War, and they finally got it. And then Grant's like, okay, we've got this. And Sherman is like, awesome. And then Grant calls into his office and says, Rawlins doesn't think this is a good idea. And Sherman just says, but this is what we always talked about. And Grant just said, I have to do this for Rawlins, because at the time Rawlins was dying. Yeah. And Sherman just looked at Grant and said, very well, Mr. President, and left the office. And things were never the same after that. Sherman really, like, that man could hold a grudge at times, but I think this one was I do think this one was warranted. Like, it was, I mean, sad what was happening to Rawlins, but, you know,
I mean, John Rawlins, I mean, he was a guy, him and Charles Daniel were put in place to basically babysit, you know, like Grant was a guy who had the sky was the limit for Lincoln, but Lincoln knew he had to keep an eye on him.
Yep.
And for better, for worse, they ended up becoming close with Grant. They understood what Grant's play was, but he did have his moments. He did literally and figuratively fall off the wagon. Mm-hmm. That June 5th, 1863, that weekend was a frigging blackout. That was like me at Gettysburg last August. Total bender.
Typical Saturday night for me, right?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say it, Mary. Although you were part of the whole blackout weekend in August. I know I was. Absolve you for that friggin' thing. Talking about pilgrims and Scooby-Doo.
Oh, that was a fun night.
Yeah, God, it was.
Ryan said, Johnny Walker Blue is not at all bad. I swapped a liter bottle of Johnny Walker Black for a Johnny Walker Blue 50 ml. Totally worth it. It would be. Andrea said that about our lives. It's Saturday morning cartoons, but for history nerds.
And kind of, I mean, that's the whole point of it. That's what we want. I mean, this is all.
People to come and hang. We would be hanging out anyway, so we're like, let's just, you know, take it to a Facebook Live and.
Yeah, look, it's all fun. It gives us an opportunity to hang out and do this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Andrea also said Rawlins is Grant's fanboy.
Andrew, why didn't you join our friggin' roundtable the other day? Big mouth. Why don't you jump on?
Stop it.
I'm just holding her feet to the fire.
Not fair.
You know?
Ryan said she who must be obeyed. Are those two still going? Me. Yes. She who must be obeyed. Don't they have families or something to spend time with? I mean, it's like Saturday. Me. That hint is just a little bit too subtle for me. Hi, Ryan.
Okay. All right.
I do like she who must be obeyed. She seems like an awesome person, actually.
Yeah, God, that's not a feeling.
Allie, sorry, go ahead.
Andrew, you can go on without being on video. You can mask your. You can just don't do video. Hang with us,
Andrea. There's nothing like just come on video.
You know, I mean, it's not that big of a deal if you know.
Allie B. Also, after Rawlins died, people like Wilson and Dana were trying to prove that Rawlins was really the brains behind the operation, and I can see how that could maybe irk him, because at this point he had no love for Dana or Wilson. And Andrea, you photograph well.
I mean, look at me. I think I photograph well. If I can do it, you can do it.
Andrea, please go on. Andrea, my voice is shrill. You heard my voice? I don't like my voice at all.
Andrew, you can come on and just hang out and not say two words. Just be there. You know? And that's the thing about it. We don't judge anybody except
although I don't have a funny
Notre Dame
new accent.
I don't know.
Andrea, you also don't have a Canadian accent either.
So, Andrea, in all seriousness, do I really have an accent?
You do,
seriously?
Weeks.
Hello, I was asking Andrea. But do I really? I mean, you know, that's well, all right, Mary. Do I really have one?
You have a bit of an accent. You told me I have a very strong accent.
Oh, you have a huge accent. You totally.
See, I don't know. I wonder what I sound like to people.
It's nice. That's nice. I mean,
I'm told by fellow Canadians I have a drawl. I sound American. And I'm told by
No,
Americans.
you definitely don't sound American. You sound like somebody from like the Minnesota, Ontario area. You say certain things. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this. But your cousin from Boston, yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess I do. I guess I don't. I don't think I really. I say my R's. I don't say pack. But I guess I do. I don't know.
I say process.
You say process. You say a booth.
About.
You say offensive. You say things like that. That's just wasting. You know?
Leonard, I don't photograph well, and I have my Mississippi accent, but I showed up. Come join us, Andrea.
Leonard came on. Leonard was awesome. He's one of our returning champions.
Leonard, even though Weeks said Leonard couldn't participate, Leonard was still there.
You know, Ryan has an accent. You can't understand a word he fucking says, but I mean, he's on.
I understood
Just
Ryan.
kidding.
100%.
I'm kidding.
Ryan, I'm Northern Irish. The worst bits of Scottish and Irish accents. I sound like English. English isn't my first language. It can't be any worse.
No.
I understand.
You don't say wicked as much. I don't say, Ellie, you're right. I don't say wicked as much. That I guess I do some. Do I say wicked? Do I say that?
No, you don't. I've never heard.
I really don't, do I? I don't think I do.
Nope.
No, I guess I don't. I don't say
nope, you don't.
Much, but,
you don't.
You know.
Do I say A?
No, I've never seen you say A. I've never heard that from you. God knows I'd fucking hell give you shit if you did. I've never heard you say A. Never have. But
I took it out of my vocabulary deliberately because I didn't. I have so many American friends and I want them teasing me about it, so I just took it out of my vocabulary. I probably say it from time to time, but I really don't. I don't think I have an accent at all. My dad says A lot. My dad has the stereotypical Canadian accent and vocabulary. Really? And he's British, which is hilarious.
Roger, I don't know where your accent comes from. I don't know what
he calls it. He calls it broken English.
Yeah, broken English is probably good. I don't think I have an accent at all. I don't.
I don't think I do.
Well, you totally do.
Well, you totally do too. Whatever.
Anyway,
Andrew said, I love the North Irish and Scottish accents. Well, then, Andrea, you have to join us for our Facebook Live.
Andrea, listen, we're going to be doing this third Wednesday in December. And you got to come on. You got to come on. Just hang out. And you know what? It's just a fun thing to do. We just have a good time.
I can do it with my voice I don't like and crazy Canadian accent. Anybody can do it.
Oh, you got a good voice. You got a good solid radio voice. I like your voice.
Ben's got to go. Ben, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, definitely, Ben. We will come down to Rhode Island sometime. We'll drink at Trinity down in Providence. We'll hook up down there sometime. We'll go. Trinity Bar is right down by the dunk.
Andrea, yeah, I'll try. Yeah, but in all serious, no pressure. If you don't come on, no worries.
Mary will hate you, but don't worry, no pressure.
Fucker. Allie said, my New England friend said I had an accent, and then I went home and questioned my life for a bit.
I don't think Allie had an accent. I don't think
I heard it a little bit, but then again, she probably hears mine.
Who, Biddles?
Yeah, Biddles probably hears.
I don't think so. I think she has a nice voice. I like her voice. Good solid voice.
No, I'm saying that. I mean, I heard Allie B's accent a little bit, which means she probably heard mine.
Allie K has got a Minnesota accent.
Oh yeah, but I like Allie B's accent. Jim, I'm not particularly fond of my nasally voice, but in 20 years of listening to calls with supervisors, I've grown okay with it. But it was really horrible to listen to when I first started in the call center customer care. And one of the things about now being over 50, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. You shouldn't care about that at any age, Jim, and you got a cool voice, so don't worry about it. Ben,
yeah, so Ben, you're right.
Yes. The first round.
Yeah, definitely. I'll bring cigars. Well, here's the deal, Ben. We will go to Trinity. I'm sure you know where it is, right downtown, down at Providence. We'll go get a couple of pops and we'll do some cigars. That'll be fun. That'll be a good time. So I can travel to Rhode Island without bargoing my life. So that'll be pretty cool.
Andrea, I have to go too. My people are hungry, and apparently I'm the only fucking person in the family who can cook. Thank you for stopping by, Andrea. I love you.
Definitely. But good stuff. So I think we're almost done anyway. I think we're about done. I think people are winding out. So, but it's good. I think going back to the whole podcast, I think it was a good podcast. It was pretty fun. We'll have a lot of fun doing the second half of this with Lookout and Missionary Ridge, and we'll do that whole thing.
Absolutely.
Maybe do a little Ringgold Gap, maybe if there's time.
Oh yeah, Claiborne's coming up for sure.
Oh God, you'd be all excited about Claiborne, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay.
But definitely. So, Yeah. So anyway, thanks for everybody signing on. I think it's definitely a good time as always to talk about this, and we have a lot of fun with this. And so, so we will do our next thing on Tuesday and drop this again next Saturday. So, but definitely, Andrew, you are definitely on the list for the roundtable next week. So make sure you do that. And so
next
month, gosh.
It's 10% weeks. Gotta be.
Remember you were nice to me back in the day? How nice that was. I enjoyed those days.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Get
used to this.
That lasted like 5 seconds. I turned the
fucker. Ryan said Rhode Island drinks means Weeks has to shave his chin, Burnside's all the way. That's my next fancy dress party, British costume party outfit.
No, I've been told I need to grow this out.
You have.
Let you figure out who, but I'm gonna grow. We'll see. Rhode Island's a cool place. I like Providence is a good little town. Obviously Federal Hill, the Italian section, but there's some good places. But I love that Trinity place. There's a bar called Trinity Pub right downtown, across from where the Providence hockey rink is, where the Providence Bruins play the minor league team. So Ben obviously knows where it is, but I could totally do that. So I definitely work that. So.
Jim says he's going to pick up his bifocals after this, so he no longer has to slide his glasses down the nose to read the comments.
Well, that's probably good. It's a good idea. We're betting from that.
Hey, I was offered bifocals last time I was at the eye doctor's, and I was like, next time I might take them.
I get glasses. I mean, I wear reading. As you know,
I'm blind as a bat without my glasses. I have been since I was 9. So.
Really?
Yep.
I can see without them, but when I read, I can't.
I can't see anything without them.
Definitely so.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
have a good weekend, guys. So thank you to everybody who popped onto this. This is
I'm not sure how much Chattanooga we talked about, but whatever. Enjoy the podcast. Watch the podcast. You'll get a better idea than this thing will. But definitely was a lot of fun. It's always great. You guys, the absolute positive best. It's so much fun doing this, and we can't imagine how much how much we appreciate this. So, but you guys have a good weekend. Rest of the week. Stay out of trouble. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll definitely be doing this soon. So this next Saturday. So, but next week we'll be doing the second half of Chattanooga, which will be cool. We'll have to do that again, and then we'll talk about who knows, God knows what else, but probably won't be Chattanooga, but we'll be doing something else. So. Good weekend. It should be a good weekend. Hopefully it's a beautiful weather day like it is here where you are.
It is. I think I'm going to go for a walk in a little while.
And next Thursday, by the way, is American Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Right.
So and I believe we have a birthday coming up.
Oh yeah, my friend.
Weeks' birthday is on Wednesday, so be sure to wish him a happy
It's on Wednesday, so we'll do that. But everybody have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys are staying somewhere safe and aren't traveling too far.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm celebrating. I'm taking time off work for it. So
yeah, there might be some beers involved on Friday, Mary, with you. I think we might be doing something. So
Thursday afternoon and Fridays when I have off work. So I'm celebrating Thanksgiving like I always do.
So definitely happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy. Hope everything. Go Patriots as usual, and we will definitely enjoy talking to everybody next time. So Mary, the pleasure again. The pleasure was all yours. But everybody, thanks for watching this again. We'll catch up with you soon. So we will look forward to talking to you down the road. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. See you later.
Okay, peace out.